I'm sorry, can sorry, I can't hear you.
Hello.
Just trying to get my headphones to work. For whatever reason, they're not.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Just wait a few more here, get some people on. Hey,
Good evening, folks.
Barry.
Good evening.
Signy, I think with Alana on leave of absence, our quorum may have dropped. Do we have?
Yeah.
Without her, do we have 8 members or 7?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Okay, no effect on.
including Ilana.
Oh, but without Alana, 7?
7 without Ilana, correct.
Okay, then yeah, our quorum is 4.
4, okay. So we have me, you, Annette,
And David.
David? Oh, he is on. I didn't expect you, David. You got on.
Yeah, we'll be here for some time. About an hour and a half.
Okay. All right, so then we do have a quorum, and there's Liz. Okay, I was just waiting for Liz to pop on. All right, very good. Then we do have a quorum. Let me put the agenda on the screen real quick, just so we can follow along. All right. All right, there was a couple of last minute updates, so I'm still kind of updating it, but I have it in the Word document. So with a quorum, we'll put a call to order, putting it out there.
Time is 6:33.
Excellent. Motion to, do we need a motion, Barry, or are we good?
No, it's a regularly scheduled meeting, so you or Liz as co-chairs can just call to order.
Okay, we'll call to order 6:33 here. So here's the agenda. I have the letter of support down here that got added. Do we need to put it under, let's see. We could just talk about it then, but is there any time restraints for 1763 Amsterdam Ave?
It may help to have a presentation on the history of the site.
Yeah, that's probably true. So we'll
Given,
put you
given
guys
how
up here.
long, given
Yeah,
how
I know,
long
right? Yeah, short and sweet tonight, everyone. I would like to get done by 9 if we can. I'm really asking for a lot, though. All right, let's put. Let's see. Does any one of the presenters have time limits today as far as when they need to leave?
Not on our end for 1763 Amsterdam Avenue.
Okay, so I'm going to put you here then, 1763. Although this is the longest one, but it is what it is. All right.
We promise to keep it short.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Okay. Yes, we have a full agenda tonight, everyone. So just keep your hats on. We'll try and get through it as quick as we can. And is there anything we need to add, amend, edit to the agenda that you see on your screen? I'm trying to make it a little bigger here. No?
Is the till addendum an action item too?
Well, we haven't had a big chance to talk about it yet, so I wanted to, what we need is to, really draft an addendum, I would say.
Okay.
So, if we do that this month or next month, is there a hurry, Barry? What I wanted to ask you about was, as far as, what's been going on, with the Palante workshop that happened and the town hall there and all that. Is there any hurry and any?
Yeah, the hurry is tied to the city council budget cycle. So I guess we should do it this month.
Okay, so I will add that down here, but we'll discuss it as well in that time frame of till area. Okay. Because I've not drafted an addendum, I've not had time, but if we can start talking about that and get that done. This week is exec, right, Barry? And next week is full. So we have a week between.
We're not on the crunch second Tuesday followed by third Thursday cycle.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes, hate those.
I know. As do we. All right. Anything else to add or edit? If not, I'll ask for a call to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Barry, can I get a second?
I second.
Very good. I don't think we had minutes from last time. I have to look back. That's been a struggle. It's been a challenge to get minutes. So I will put it out there if there is anyone willing to help us with minutes tonight. Liz and I, as we're leading the meeting, it is difficult to take notes while we lead. Now, I will say that the minutes themselves only need to be very basic about, when we start, the basic topics. And the most important thing is recording the votes for our action items. That would be one of the most important things. We need, just a record of how the committee voted on all those action items. And then, beginning time, close time, that kind of thing. The very basic. Is anyone willing to help us out from the community out there or on our committee?
We need to bribe people with like baked goods.
Oh yeah, I'm saying.
I can do minutes tonight, Signe.
I think some baked goods are in your future, Barry.
Yeah, I got some Swedish donuts for you and some Ebelskivers for you. All right.
Actually, I have a cupcake here. I'll walk it over to you because I don't want to eat both of them. I am not kidding.
I know she's not. All right, so we will hold on these minutes. I'll see if I can scrounge something together for next time. That's minutes for last meeting, that would have been. And all right, so quick introductions. We don't have a ton of people on the line, but we have a long meeting, so I'm just going to go through committee members and community board members as we go. Welcome, everyone. You have entered the Housing, Land Use, and Zoning Committee meeting for Community Board 9 in Manhattan. We cover from about 110 to 155, from Hudson all the way to kind of Edgecombe. We go along St. Nicholas, and we kind of veer around. This is my cat Tisbet. Yes, he makes appearances in our meetings. We have lots of cats that make appearances. And I live on 150th Street. I'm the co-chair of housing. Been here about on the community board 12 years now, and on this committee maybe 9, I think. And with that, I'll send it over to Liz, my co-chair.
Thanks, Signe. Hi, everybody. Liz Whitetakis, co-chair of this committee. I've lived in the neighborhood for about 20 years. I live on Convent Avenue in an HDFC. I've more or less been participating in community board meetings since 2010. I am also the local cat lady. So if you're on the corner of 142 and Riverside Drive, that's me. All right, Barry, I'm sending it to you.
I am Barry Weinberg. I've been a member of this committee for 10 years. I live on 138th Street and Riverside Drive, and I currently serve as chair of the full community board. And I will pass it to Annette.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for coming. I am a board member. I've been on the board for over 10, and I've lived in this neighborhood since I was a child.
Who do you want to send it to? David? How about David?
David, I'm sorry. That silent pause, right?
I know, I'm gonna say who's left. David Hansel, I'm on Broadway, just south of 125th. Been there since 2006 on the board, about 5-6 years, and run him at Handleton Association. And who else is on? Alana's not. Tiffany. Who else is on the board?
I think that's it of our committee members. I don't see Tiffany or Juan. Do we see Anita, Tanya, Jared, or Olga?
No.
No? All right, well, that is committee. I think I see a couple of community board members. We'll just give a shout out to Heather. Jason, say hello, Heather.
Oh, hi, everyone. Yes, I'm a co-chair of the Landmarks Preservation and Parks Committee. I've been in the community for over 26 years.
Wonderful.
and the Sugar Hill Historic District.
Thanks, Heather, for joining our meeting tonight. It's always great when we can combine committee members. All right. So with that said, I think we're going to jump right in. I see a lot of friendly faces on here and a lot of folks that are presenting. We thank you for joining us tonight so that we can chat with you and let the community ask questions about any projects and things that we are presenting tonight. So thank you all. I'm going to throw it out to start with Sean from CCNY, and we'll save any other, announcements till the end of this section, I think. But Sean, why don't you take it away? And we have an action item tonight that Sean is presenting to us, and so Sean will tell us a little bit more about what that is.
Great. Thank you, Sydney. So first, I want to thank the committee and the entire board and everyone who's here for inviting me to give a little introduction of reintroduction, I should say, of the center. It's the J. Max Bond Center for Urban Futures at the City College of New York, your friendly neighbor. I want to begin by saying there's some faces and names that are familiar to me here, but it's been some time since COVID and since the passing of our dear colleague, April Tyler, who I worked with quite a bit before the COVID era. And before Barry, I had also worked with Padmore on some community board issues as I was starting my tenure here at City College. So I've been at the college for 4 years, running the J. Max Bond Center for Urban Futures. The center is the applied research center for the college, focused on social and spatial justice. In short, what that means is that the center, outside of any other responsibilities to the institution, is a public resource for the community to research issues around development specific to our local partners, meaning you, Community Board 9, and others that I'll briefly mention. So in the past, your board has been a wonderful collaborator. We worked on some projects that were fee for services and helping to develop some applications and some software that might be of interest to the Land Use Committee. Most of this work taking place prior to the advent of COVID. Where we are now, which is in some part an attempt to re-establish this relationship. We haven't gone anywhere. We've still been here working diligently on quite a few projects. And as of late, since we've now been in person again, with the support of Vince Boudreau, the college's president, and also I would mention Marta Gutman, who's the new dean at the School of Architecture. We're sort of doubling down and recommitting to our partners in terms of some of the opportunities that have come our way. And we want to make sure that those opportunities make their way to our community partners. So one of those opportunities is quite a bit of research that is of importance both to the college, but also more importantly to the local community. To give you an idea, there's members in the engineering department working, and I'm working with them on a National Science Foundation grant looking at energy cells to reduce the burden of current energy and rising energy costs, and attempts to kind of wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. That's happening at the College of Engineering, Grove School College of Engineering. There's quite a bit of land use and housing research going on across the college, some at the Colin Powell School, some here at the School of Architecture, and I'll go into a little bit more detail with that. And then there's another large project sponsored by the college as a whole. It involves about 5 different departments, and that is a project on climate solidarity. And that involves climate change issues. And this was all sort of featured recently through the president's office. So to kind of communicate to the broader college community and our partners of what the college has been doing and what we are doing on behalf of you, our partners. Now, more specific to the Bond Center, we are engaged in an opportunity that is under a federal HUD grant, that is Housing and Urban Development. And I had the pleasure of meeting with Liz, Barry, and Signe here at the Bond Center to discuss some of the things that we're currently working on and what this HUD opportunity entails. And if I could, Signe, I don't know if I can share a screen, but if I can briefly, looks like I have permission to, is that okay? Great.
Absolutely. That's, yep, I shared screen for you.
Great. So can everyone see this screen? Can I get a thumbs up? Great. Okay. I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger just so everyone can perhaps read that. Okay, great. So at the moment, we do have some funding here at the School of Architecture for the Bond Center from both public and private sources. Some of this is community board associations, some funding from private philanthropy, some funding from institutes, with projects that range from concerns about affordable housing, an equity development index, which is another project that we're working on, and various others. And these all fall under the category for this HUD grant that situates City College and the center quite nicely in terms of this opportunity. And so what I'm showing you here is something that I shared with Signe, Barry, and Liz, this request for a letter of support for this particular grant. And just to give you a summary without going into the length of the proposal and the grant itself, I want to focus on what are the kind of strategic goals that I've just highlighted here. And I'll just read some of what those goals are. And these are directly from the HUD grant application. Strategic goal number 1 is to support underserved communities by fortifying support for those communities in the support of equitable community development for all people. One of the sub goals in that category is advance housing justice. A second one is reduce homelessness, and the third is to invest in the success of those communities. Strategic goal number 2 for this grant is to ensure access to and increase production of affordable housing. This is something that I know I've worked closely with Barry on, as well as April prior to her passing, and we continue to work in that endeavor here at the center. The subcategories for that is to ensure that housing demand is matched by adequate production of new homes and equitable access to housing opportunities for all people. 2A, increase housing supply, and 2B, improve rental assistance. The third strategic goal, and there are several, but these are the 3 that we're focusing on. Advance sustainable communities. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a climate solidarity project that's actually ongoing as we speak, and that fits nicely into this category. But the subcategories are to guide investment in climate resilience, strengthen environmental justice, and integrate healthcare and housing. We are in conversations with the folks at WEACT that I know you all know pretty well, in bringing them into some of this work as well. In addition to that, I will say that I mentioned Community Board 9 as one of our key partners, but also Community Board 10 and Community Board 12 that we've done work for all of those community boards in the past, and have also sought their support for this endeavor. And what this grant, if we are successful, what it entails is that it allows City College to kind of augment the existing centers that we currently have with a new center of excellence. Now, may not be at a new center, but it may be absorbed into one of the existing centers. For example, like the Center for the Bond Center for Urban Futures. And then there's some centers also at Colin Powell that we've been talking with. But what it provides is much needed resources to continue to kind of do this work Some of the funding that is generated through this HUD grant goes directly to community partners and community organizations so they can do some of the work and actually serve as collaborators in the research. This is kind of imperative in terms of, I think, HUD's mission to achieve some of these goals. So this is really not a top-down strategy by which ideas are brought from either institutions or academies and applied directly to communities, but this is thought to be collaborative work by which solutions are generated from within the community, and then those ideas are brought forth in the research that are that institutions have the ability to carry out. And that's really the goal and the position that we seek to serve in this work. Now, what I'm sharing here is sort of a teaser to one of the key projects. This was a memo that was sent out and requested by Community Board 10. And I know that you guys have communications with them. So, you know, in full transparency, this sort of outlines one of the key projects that we're working on that fits very nicely into this HUD grant. Community Board 10 funded this as a fee for service to the center. And so as a pilot project, we're working on this Equity Development Index. We've had several meetings with the likes of EDC and the members of the community board, particularly the Land Use Committee, to discuss this work. And effectively, it's a team of researchers looking to develop an index tool that can look at individual development projects based on some criteria established by the community board that would then render a score relative to that development proposal. And this is of importance relative to the Manhattan Borough President's housing plan and all of the sites that he identified that throughout that plan, of which several exist both within your district and as well as others. And we feel that the need for a tool to address how and what takes place on these sites, as well as privately owned sites, is something that's sorely missed out there in the field as it currently exists. And I think you all have had experience with EDC or HPD in terms of engagement and what that sort of looks like. We're really looking to see if we can develop an objective scoring tool that looks at quite a few factors, both from the housing supply and development side, but most importantly from the community's interest and priority side that we want to be able to build this tool out with. And here's a couple of screenshot teasers. This would be a web-based tool with an algorithm assigned to it to kind of score metrics on pre-existing projects. So percentage of housing units, affordability, environmental criteria, job creation. It's quite a robust list. This is quite an endeavor that we're seeking to do. And we're just in the pilot phase, but we've been testing some of this and some of the other work with regards to some community engagement and collaboration to get a feel if this is a useful tool. Thus far, the response has been positive. And so that's an example of some of the kinds of things we believe both HUD and we hope you and others as community partners would be interested in. For those who are interested and wouldn't mind doing a little bit more reading, this is actually a link that I can provide in the chat that will take you to the grant site. So you can read a little bit more about how the grant is specifically targeting, in this case, Hispanic serving institutions, of which City College is one of them. And then some of the other criteria that they're looking for to provide this grant. In brief summary, this is funding for this center for 3 years. And that total amount that is determined by the evaluators will range somewhere between 3 million and probably 1.5 million over 3 years. That really allows us to do quite a bit of work just in terms of hiring staff, engagement sessions, research finding sessions with you as community partners. And so it's a real great opportunity that we think not only for City College, but specifically for the communities that we serve. And so it's really seen as a joint venture in how we're looking at this project and this opportunity. And thus therein lies the basis for the request that I believe is an action item at the end of this evening's agenda for a letter of support that we've sort of preliminarily drafted to give some context that I'm sure your leadership wouldn't mind sharing with you if you are all interested. But in the sake of time, I'll stop there, take any questions, and hopefully continue to see you all in the near future as we continue this and other projects that we're engaged in.
Thanks, Sean. So yes, thank you so much. I know April started a journey with you on all of this close to when you started at CCNY. She got right in there with you.
That's
and
correct.
we're proud and happy to be continuing that conversation and that partnership. But if anybody has questions for Sean, we do have an action item later that we can, talk a bit more about, specifically the letter of support that we're going to vote upon in our action items. But if anyone has questions now for Sean, feel free to raise your hand in the chat reactions section on the bottom of your screen. If you don't know how to do that, or you're not able to, feel free to raise your hand in your image and we'll take a look and find you. Anybody have questions for Sean?
And while we take questions, I'm just providing in the chat a link to the actual federal HUD grant site with a deeper description of the grant opportunity.
Cool.
And while people might be considering some questions, I'll just add that previously under your past leadership, Padmore John, we had a very interesting conversation when we were working on a air quality project, and I was connecting Padmore with an engineer at the Grove School of Engineering, Michael Grossberg, who was interested in having some young people from the community outfitted with sensors do some environmental testing of the air quality. And Padmore and I were trying to figure out, how do we engage the younger community to get involved, one at this level of research, but just more in general in terms of the community. And one of the things that a grant like this offers is an outright opportunity to kind of hire and employ members of the community to collaborate and do some of the science and or research relative to quite a few initiatives and or missions that might be of interest both to the community and the board, but also part of this HUD agenda, which obviously includes things like climate change and environmental justice, the housing things I certainly mentioned. But this is one kind of example of how we might be able to leverage this kind of funding to have more engagement, more collaborative opportunities across the board from the various committees right on down to actual residents of the community.
Great. Well, I think that was some time for people to think of questions. Perhaps they want to continue the conversation when we get to action items. But thank you again, Sean. Okay. As you mentioned, we met with you a couple weeks back now to go over this as well as just Barry, Liz, and I, and we got your letter, and we've added some things in there regarding, who the letter of support is from and all of that. So we'll look at that in action items.
Fantastic. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah. All right, so moving along, that takes us to our next presenter. Who do I have next? I have to look at my agenda. Where's my agenda? That's Vincent Morgan with HD Resource Center.
Hello, everybody. How
Hi.
are you? I am going to first briefly introduce myself by saying that I am the director of the newly formed HDFC Resource Center at the West Harlem Development Corporation. I've been around. I started my life out in New York about 25 years ago in Community Board 9. So I was a resident of Community Board 9 for about 5 years and then moved to Community Board 10. Now we live in the Bronx. I am a Taurus by astrological sign. I had a great meeting about a month ago, maybe, with Signe and Liz, and we sort of talked about sort of the big picture and some of the sort of action items around HDFCs. And since then, I got to say, just like Sean said before, April's reach is everywhere. I've met with so many people that have worked in housing and HDFCs in conversations over the past months. And I just really, she's such an example of how your life's work lives beyond you, because 90% of the people I talked to brought up April Tyler in some type of way. So I think about her every day as I do this work and try and create this, because I want to do something that will do justice to all of the years she spent in the community working around HDFCs. So with that said, I have been spending a lot of time sort of figuring out, and I like to describe it as the HDFC conversation is kind of like a very complicated puzzle, because every building is different. Every building has a different demographic makeup. Every building has a different socioeconomic makeup. Every building has a different age that it was built, different heating and HVAC structures, different needs, that make them all very, very unique. So trying to figure out how to allocate resources and time and energy into programmatic things, it's really like putting puzzle pieces together where there's some extra pieces and there's some missing pieces, and we're trying to fit all of that together to see what's going on. So for the next couple of months, we are embarking on a canvassing campaign. We've got 200 plus HDFC buildings in Community Board 9, and no one has the book and the data on the individual buildings. I have a list of the buildings that's readily available, but because of COVID, because HPD has really not been following up with the data on who's actually managing these buildings, who the directors are, the information about who's in charge of these buildings in many instances is absent. And we're trying to put a book together, so it'll be a definitive book on who to go to, who's managing the building, and some relevant data on that building, including the condition of the building, the age it was built, the individual needs that that building has, and what resources that building needs to sort of sustain itself. April, who I worked with for a long time, because I started out my professional career in government, and her mother, Sylvia, always talked about how HDFCs are a small part of the big New York affordable housing puzzle, but they're the most important part. And, she was right in the respect that HDFCs are a home ownership opportunity. We have so many problems with affordable housing across the board when it comes to rentals and when it comes to access, but, protecting HDFCs because it's home ownership, and it's something that has stood the test of time over the past 40 years since they were created, is something that deserves, sort of our attention and our respect in that. So from collecting the data and really figuring out how to put programmatic things together around individual needs as they're sort of collectively looked at, the other conversation around what sort of needs to happen right now are twofold. And this is really where the community board and this committee's advocacy is going to come in, because one, there's a big deadline that's happening. The Article 421, which is a part of Local Law 97, is going to require all HDFCs to basically have reporting requirements by the end of next year, due May 1st of 2025, around environmental efficiency standards. Now, HDFCs have been excluded from the requirement that they actually change their fossil fuel and HVAC and petroleum and heating, sort of infrastructure, but they aren't precluded from doing this report. And the report requires an assessment, and the report also requires documentation of some fixes for environmental issues to make buildings more energy efficient, coinciding with a report generated by a certified inspector and submitted to HPD in the city. And if it's not submitted, it'll risk fines. So we're trying to work with organizations like We Act, Palante, and some other local organizations to reach out to these buildings and educate them about what's necessary and potentially provide some financial resource so that they can actually meet the requirements that the building has, such as simple things like shoring up any kind of leaks in the infrastructure, or irradiation screens behind radiators for radiator heat generated buildings. That sounds simple, but it's actually pretty complicated, and it costs money. So a lot of time this stuff gets put on the back burner because buildings are struggling to stay afloat. They're struggling to keep things maintained in an environment, and they may need resources around that. Some other things that we're looking at are some loans to buildings to help out with arrears. We've had a lot of problems with buildings that have fallen into an arrears problem with tenants because tenants have become unemployed. So we're looking at doing some type of program where we would actually help the building. We can't really help individuals in buildings, but help buildings sort of identify where their holes are and provide them some type of financial assistance to weather the storm when they have those challenges to their maintenance collections, and a bunch of other things as we progress from collecting this data around each individual building and what their needs are. I anticipate that the resource center will be open at the end of June, even though we're technically open now because people reach out to me all of the time. I will be honest and say that most of the requests that I've gotten up to this point are individuals who are having financial issues and they can't pay their maintenance. It's an opportunity to sort of talk to people and identify their needs within buildings. Our resources initially, I think, are going to be allocated towards buildings and building boards and that type of connection. But it is very challenging to see buildings who are impacted by folks who have had a loss of a job or have had a hard time moving back into the work environment because of COVID, putting their neighbors in jeopardy and at risk because they've had financial issues, and trying to figure out a way to sort of help the community around that if those kind of challenges arise. We're open to other ideas and other things, and I look forward to working with this committee in particular, but the whole community board as we sort of devise a strategy going forward. But my primary goal right now is to get the center open so we can really provide a place where people can go to tell us what they need and to allow us to have an opportunity to have that type of interaction back and forth. The other thing that I want to mention, though, is City Council had a big housing hearing for their housing committee last week. And it sounds like a long time off, but it's not. I see we have Robert Cornegie on the chat. The DAMP tax exemption expires in 2029, which is 6 years from now. But there's going to be a lot of work that's going to have to happen in the city council in order to sort of re-envision what HDFCs are and what the parameters around protecting those tax exemptions are, if any. That's a legislative issue. And as we move closer and closer to that date, you are going to probably see over the next election cycle a lot of talk about HDFCs and sort of reimagining sort of what HDFCs are. At the root of what we're all trying to do is protect HDFCs. And in that conversation about what they're going to become, I think it's important to start, one, educating your constituency about, the ramifications of that tax exemption going away potentially, and shoring up the individual buildings, governance documents, and all of the things associated with the structure of that building. Because in this conversation about what HDFCs become, we're really going to have to look at how those HDFCs have been constructed legally, because many of these HDFCs haven't reviewed their documents since they were incorporated, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's a good time really to start having the conversation about what HDFCs are going to become and the fight to protect some of these incentives that have allowed them to exist and sustain themselves over this period of time. With that said, I will stop and answer any questions specifically about anything that anyone may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. Yes, in April's words, she always said these are our biggest and last bastion of affordable ownership, right? So, and in many of them, most of them in low income and minority neighborhoods like ours, we have a huge amount in our district. So this is worth protecting. It's worth fighting for, and we are very glad to have this new resource center coming. So if you have questions, please raise your hand.
Has the largest percentage in the city. There are about 1,500 HDFCs citywide.
Yeah.
230 of them are located in Community Board 9, so it is a big concentration of them.
Yes. Yeah, we lead the way in this, and April led the way in this through our district. So it's.
Oh, and there's one other thing now that you brought that up. Another big piece of what they talked about was, and I see that you have on the agenda, the TIL program, which is now the ACNP program.
Barry will tell you more. But
there are about 73 buildings that they're trying to convert from rental TIL program buildings into HDFCs traditionally, and about 22 of them are in Community Board 9. This is another thing that we really need to look at, because the conversion process from TIL buildings to HDFCs is already underway. There's 2 of them that have already happened and more on the docket, but that was discussed last week at the City Council hearing, and it's something that you all will be hearing more and more about. We are looking at providing some resource to help these buildings become HDFCs if they need that kind of assistance. That's either legal assistance or service support assistance, as the building determines whether they're trying to move in that direction.
Yeah, I'm sorry for cutting in. I would really not veer away from getting involved with the TIL buildings, but you'll see on our agenda tonight, there is an addendum to our 2017 resolution being proposed. We firmly oppose ANCP, the Affordable Neighborhood Cooperative Program. It is a program designed to load up these buildings with debt and enrich private developers before they become HDFC cooperatives, and leave the shareholders to be holding the bag for that debt.
Yeah,
very few of the buildings in ANCP have actually converted to HDFCs. Those that have frequently have very high maintenance costs compared to what it would have been had they emerged from TIL.
And I'm with you on all of that. My point was that the HPD is going through this process. You all are going to be hearing more about it. And that does not mean that HPD can't be held accountable in their negotiations with these buildings to make sure that there's something equitable that comes out on the other end. And if something equitable comes out of the other end and those buildings decide that they want to move forward, if there's an opportunity for us to potentially look at helping provide some resource for that, that would be fine. So yeah, those issues are very legitimate issues, and there's a big push against that in its form that it's been presented. So yeah, and that was a part of the hearing last week.
The reason I have my hand raised, though, is because having worked with a number of distressed HDFCs in Community Board 9, one of the things that I think the center should attempt to provide is some professional mediation services. Many of the buildings struggle with issues of either I don't know how to put it politely, but either, conflict among shareholders and neighbors,
right.
Share issues where shareholders are violating the terms of their proprietary lease, or issues where board members are acting outside of in conflict with their fiduciary duties and pursuing self-interest. and frequently having a neutral outside party present to, mediate between conflicting sides or point out what the legal documents and relevant rules and regulations are, can assist in resolving some of these matters that, if left unaddressed, can lead to the building being in financial distress or even facing the threat of foreclosure by the city.
That is an excellent point, and that is definitely something that is there. It's an extra set of eyes that's impartial, that can keep the boards and the individual shareholders protected. And you're right, and that's a part of what I was saying about how each one of these buildings is sort of different, and there's no gentle way to say it. Some of them are better managed than others, and some of them have parameters and protocols that have not been followed. So providing that type of resource is really important, but it also goes to, this may be a good opportunity to look or provide resource to board governance documents and the processes that these buildings have for, transfer of the property to family members, the sale of property, the caps on what things can be sold for individuals to make the individual buildings to make those determinations for, the future protections of the building. So yes and yes to both of those things.
Yeah, and the other thing I would strongly encourage you to do is to not reinvent the wheel, in that, while HDFCs are a very important and special class of buildings in our city, they are also housing cooperatives. And so the CNYCC, the Council of New York City Cooperatives and Condominiums, has some really excellent resources for co-ops in general that HDFCs have found to be helpful for things that are kind of on the technical side, like, board governance processes, weatherization and efficiency upgrades, how to manage capital projects and maintenance, all of that sort of stuff. And I think, dues for buildings are very low, especially for buildings that are smaller. And so that is some organization that the center may wish to consider partnering with.
Absolutely. You have also offered some services, as everyone knows, but again, it's not a one size fits all. So yeah, thank you for that. That was very good.
If anyone has any other questions, hands raised. I know Vic Edwards wanted to come tonight and say hello, Vince, and he had a quick question. There was he is our CBA expert, and he had a question about the hoping that maybe the new division can explore solar energy alternative. It's off this oil purchasing program and this segment in the CBA about that.
Right. Yeah. So there is a whole section that talked about a shared purchasing program for oil.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat because he sent it to me. So just to remind folks, but yeah. And so he's asking, he hears there might already be something around, but
UHAB actually has a joint purchasing program, and there's no nice way to say this, but the CBA was written 15 years ago. That section. And I've talked to several members, some of April's former colleagues, who were like, when they wrote that section, it made sense. And when, because of where we were, but now in this sort of climate centric and legislatively moving away from, oil and heat generation, because what we know about how bad it is for the environment and for the people that breathe it in, a smarter thing that we feel might be to do is to help provide resource to get people and buildings moved away from oil. And we're looking at solar, and we're looking at heat pump technology. One of the biggest barriers to buildings converting is the cost of evaluating the building for conversion. So the cost of just going into the building and figuring out what needs to happen to take it from oil and move it into the other place is the first significant barrier to doing anything. Now remember, HDFCs have been excluded from the requirements to convert for a period of time, but that doesn't mean that in the near future that legislation could change and they would be required to do it. So we're trying to get ahead of that and try and provide some type of resource to make sure that buildings aren't precluded from even evaluating what it's going to take to move into these new, energy streams for the building because of the cost of evaluating and doing that first step.
Yeah, makes sense. We have to move with the times and the environment.
I saw Barry shaking his head on that one.
Yeah, because the environment is moving, climate is moving faster than any of us expected, I think. So climate change. Any other questions, hands? Feel free to ask your questions for Vince. Vince, we thank you. Looking forward to continuing the conversation and coming back to, joining us on the regular to get more thoughts from the community as we go. And I know
Well,
we've talked to a lot of folks, so.
We're in touch with you, Sydney and Liz, and to make sure that we keep you informed every step of the way. Perfect.
All right, with that. Okay, so now we're going to move along to, so we every once in a while have what is called text amendment, zoning text amendments come our way from the city. And we have some coming up. It has to go through the official ULURP process, which is how official commentary from the community boards and the borough president and all the partners that have a say in various text amendments, zoning text amendments go. And so we have our guest Aubrey Walks. Is that how you say it, Aubrey?
It's Audrey Walks. Yeah.
Audrey Walks. Oh, sorry. I put a B in there instead of a D. My
no worries.
Oh, well, okay. So Audrey, thank you for coming. And so this is regarding the city of yes that goes along with the getting stuff done, right? Getting stuff built. Mayor Adams' proposals. And so this is the beginning of some text amendments that are coming our way for review. We're going to have public hearings on these. I know this one is going to be coinciding a bit over the summer when we're on break, so we need to get on this faster than not. So we wanted to make sure we had you on this meeting. I know you have a bit of a lengthy presentation, so we're gonna, if we can get the questions in as well and move along with this, that would be great in those 30 minutes that you requested. So with that said, tell us about the City of Yes text amendment.
Fantastic. Thank you, Signe. Can I share my screen?
Yep, you should be able to. I've allowed it for. Yeah.
All right. Can everyone see this presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm here this evening to talk to you about the City of Yes for carbon neutrality, which is an opportunity to update our zoning regulations to help meet our city's climate goals. Tonight, I'm going to review the background on the City of Yes, outline some climate initiatives and outreach that preceded the carbon neutrality text amendment, examine the 4 goals and 17 proposals in this text amendment, and share the timeline and next steps for the text amendment review and approvals. There will be 3 pauses for questions during the presentation, but if you have an urgent question, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. Oops. Hold on just one moment.
Signe, is there a way that you can share the presentation on your end and then we click?
I can probably do that. Yeah. And just tell me when to click.
Oh, wait.
Yep. Oh, do you want to try again?
I think,
we can try again too.
yeah, let me try again. Sorry.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to prep it just in case. I'm going to go find it.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It happens.
Hi, everyone, by the way. I'm Jose from TCP.
Hi, Jose. All right, I have it on my screen if you need it.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Let me pop it up. This it?
That's it.
Just let me know when you want me to change screen.
Sure. Can you go to slide 3, please?
Yep. Okay. That one?
Yep, perfect. Thank you. So the City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality is the first of 3 projects that the Department of City Planning is developing as part of Mayor Adams's broader City of Yes initiatives, charging agencies to take a hard look at outdated regulations, holding New Yorkers back from investing in their homes, businesses, and our city overall. 2 other initiatives, economic opportunity and housing opportunity, will begin more public engagement later this summer. They are distinct and independent proposals, but to avoid inundating community members during the public review process, DCP is staggering reviews for each one this year and into next year. The text amendment aims to deliver zoning relief to property owners who want to save on energy costs and reduce emissions through retrofits, but who are currently stymied by zoning rules and regulations. Finally, the City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality isn't the last word on sustainability. There will be sustainability components in the forthcoming economic opportunity and housing opportunity text amendments. Next slide.
Let me get on it. Hold on. I think I got it. There we go.
Perfect, thanks. First, I want to frame our conversation. Oh, why are we talking about carbon? We're talking about carbon because we are facing a climate emergency, and it is largely fueled by global CO2 emissions. Here in New York, the goal is to reduce the city's emissions 80% by the year 2050. In this presentation, I'm going to be using the word decarbonization a lot, and simply put, decarbonization is the process of reducing greenhouse gas emissions produced by the combustion of fossil fuel. Next slide. In New York, the key driver of our city's carbon emissions is by far our building sector. And there's a big relationship between our buildings and the zoning laws that govern them. Next slide. This slide depicts the initiatives that led up to the carbon neutrality text amendment from Zone Green in 2012 until today. For time's sake, I'm going to move quickly through the next 2 slides so we can focus on the text amendment. Next slide. This slide illustrates our community outreach around the proposals. Next slide. And along the way, we've asked experts, nonprofit leaders, and advocates the following questions. What can the city do to help achieve our collective climate goals? How has zoning helped or hindered the advancement of these goals? And through our engagement over the last year, we've identified 17 ways in which zoning can tackle the climate crisis. Next slide. DCP divided these 17 proposals into 4 overarching goals. Tonight, we'll review the text amendments goals and the proposals. Goal 1 is to decarbonize our energy grid. Goal 2 is to decarbonize our building stock. Goal 3 is to decarbonize our vehicles and transportation. And goal 4 is to decarbonize our waste stream. Any questions or comments so far? Great.
Raise hands, speak up.
Okay. Next slide, please. To decarbonize our energy grid, New York City zoning can help in 5 key areas. Next slide. First, I want to share a bit of background. This slide shows initiatives underway at the state and city level. These are not part of our zoning proposal. They're the context in which the planning is situated. By 2040, New York State is legally required to achieve 100% renewable energy, a renewable energy grid. To support this, we'll be developing large amounts of offshore wind and bringing in more clean hydroelectric power from upstate and from Canada. However, this transition will need an all hands on deck approach. This includes putting all of our rooftops to work, generating energy across the city. Here's where we stand right now on rooftop solar. In 2016, the city set a goal of producing 1,000 megawatts of rooftop solar across the city by 2030. To date, we are currently generating only about 300 to 400 megawatts. This means we have only 7 years to more than double the amount of solar capacity in New York City to meet this goal. To utilize energy from offshore wind and from rooftop solar, our energy grid needs to be more decentralized, with resources spread throughout the city instead of being limited to utility sites in outlying areas. And to support this decentralized grid, we will need to store energy in large batteries. These batteries will act as the glue or the nodes of this future energy grid. Next slide. First, we can take a fresh look at our rooftop zoning allowances. In R6 districts and above, for example, there's a 25% max coverage limit with a 6-foot setback for solar arrays right now. This proposal updates those rules to ensure that a roof can be 100% covered by solar, as seen in this rendering. Next slide. Second, we need to maximize the solar potential of surface parking lots. Zoning needs to be updated to allow solar canopies over the city's 8,000 plus acres of parking. Next slide. The third proposal facilitates community solar, a scheme that allows, for example, your solar array to provide power to your neighbors. Today's zoning classifies community solar as a commercial use. However, there are large residential campuses, hospitals, schools, and colleges in residential districts where community solar would be a great fit. Our zoning needs to be updated to allow for the expansion of community solar. Next slide. Fourth, we will need to ensure that safe, FDNY, and DOB reviewed storage facilities are located where they are needed most. Energy storage. Energy storage via large rooftop batteries is currently not allowed in residential districts where customers need access to clean energy. Consequently, zoning needs to be updated to add specific rules for energy storage in residential districts. Next slide. Finally, onshore wind faces strict limits in today's zoning without a quote unquote relief valve for sites where greater heights might be appropriate. The zoning proposal will create a new tool that can be used by future applicants to submit onshore wind facilities for a public review process with the City Planning Commission. And to be clear, this proposal doesn't change the current height restrictions on wind turbines. Next slide. The second goal is to decarbonize our city's building stock. We want to eliminate fossil fuel from our city's 1 million plus existing buildings. These buildings are by far our biggest source of carbon dioxide emissions. And to reduce these emissions, we'll need to retrofit virtually every single building by replacing oil and gas powered furnaces and boilers with efficient electric systems. We'll also need to improve the efficiency of our exterior walls, windows, and roofs to keep the heat and the cool inside. It's important to note here 2 crucial laws adopted by the City Council in 2019 and 2021. For large buildings, Local Law 97 will begin to impose fines on building owners if they don't cut their carbon emissions. Second, Local Law 154 requires that all new buildings are electrified from the get-go. Fossil fuel-based equipment will be banned in new construction. It's important to note that these laws have already been passed, and our zoning proposals will help owners comply with these laws. Next slide. In this context, zoning can help support the decarbonization of buildings in 3 key ways. First is through electrification retrofits and physical screens for rooftop mechanicals. Zoning can be changed to allow equipment like heat pumps, which can't be in basements or cellars, to be located above the zoning height limit on building rooftops. This will give owners, architects, and engineers greater flexibility to navigate the best path towards electrification. Next slide. The second proposal is allowing envelope retrofits to meet code. Zoning needs to ensure that owners who'd like to upgrade their insulation or reclad buildings don't run into zoning obstacles that prevent them from doing so. Third is promoting envelopes that perform better than code. The 2012 zone green wall thickness deduction awards a small amount of additional floor area for quote unquote better than code buildings. This can be updated to reflect the latest energy code and best practices for the future. Then, per Vince's comments about the cost for implementing green energy retrofits, there are certainly concerns and questions around the cost. So undertaking this work, as we know, will not be free, but there are billions of dollars available at the federal, state, and local level to support the transition. For example, the New York City Accelerator by the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice can connect owners with technical and financial support. I'm going to pause here for a minute. Are there any questions or comments so far?
I have two.
Sure.
On the electrification retrofits, in the past, we've had issues with mechanical voids kind of taking advantage of their exemption from the FAR cap being used to artificially inflate the height of buildings. Are there going to be like common sense hard limits put in on those rooftop mechanicals so that we don't see similar abuses?
That is a very good question. Give me 1 minute to check my notes. And if I don't have a solid answer for you right now, I will be sure to get one to you as soon as I can. That's a very good question. Jose, do you have any thoughts on this?
Audrey, did you say me?
Oh, Jose.
Yeah, you know, there are specific guidelines within the text that I'm looking at, so I can try to find the actual numbers and put it in the chat in a sec. But I know we had discussed that because it came out in the info section as well.
Got it. And then the second question is zone green, which I don't remember, too many text amendments, but what is kind of the rough magnitude in terms of percentages of FAR that a building will get for zone green?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will get an answer to you as soon as I can.
Yeah, I know that with like zoning for transit accessibility, they provided the maximum percentages that the CPC could award qualifying projects. So it'd be good to know if those exist for this, and if so, what are they?
Sure. Thank you for those questions.
Tiffany, see her hand raised? Oh, she's taking it down.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question about the batteries, the safety of the battery. It's probably a dumb question, but I'm not sure what they're made of. The lithium, I know that there have been concerns about the flammability of those batteries, and I was just wondering if that's something that we should be worried about, and also the proximity to people, residential spaces where these batteries would be placed.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I hear you. And I think that we've all heard about, you know, the e-bike batteries in the news and the explosions and the fires. So I would love to address that concern right now. So in the presentation, the picture that I showed you was an energy storage, a large lithium ion battery on top of the Barclays Center, which is, you know, a huge arena where tens of hundreds of thousands pass through every year. So that is the type of energy storage system that's being considered. And they are fundamentally different from the types of batteries that you would see on an e-bike. And that's because these are much larger, they're stationary, and they meet they'll be inspected by FDNY and DOB, and they have extremely stringent, those agencies have extremely stringent inspection and certification requirements and for the batteries, and as opposed to the e-bikes, which can sometimes be, the owners will modify them, or they'll use like a non-manufacturer approved charger, and sort of these variations in use can contribute to their danger. But the large energy storage system batteries on buildings are much more regulated and proven safe.
Good. Okay. Liz, you have a question?
Yep. Hey, Audrey, good to see you again.
Likewise.
Wow. So of course, my question is about the proposal in solar and landmarks and landmark districts, and how will they be treated?
I knew that you were going to ask that question. So thank you. So any type of solar canopy installation on a landmark building or in a historic district will still need to go through LPC approvals in the same way that any type of visible rooftop modification would go through the LPC in the historic district or on an individual landmark.
Will there be, because right now they're essentially not allowed if they're visible from different viewpoints. Will there be some sort of relaxation of that rule?
That I do not know. We will get clarification on that for you, because that's a question that many community boards and neighbors share that concern. So I'll be sure to follow up with you and let you know.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Heather, Jason, yes.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned something about 100% coverage for the solar panels, doing away with the 6 feet setback. Can you just provide us with a little bit more information about that? And in addition to that, will the 6 feet path required by FDNY still be required, or will that be relaxed at all in this text amendment to possibly 4 feet?
Sorry, can you say, can you clarify the part about 4 feet? I think I missed that.
I think there's a required 6 feet path for the FDNY for front to back of buildings for solar installations. Otherwise, I think you need to get a variance. Is there anything in this text amendment that will give more flexibility to possibly reduce the 6 feet on flat roofs to 4 feet? And then I just wanted to get clarification when you said something about 100% coverage of solar on the roof and the doing away with the 6 feet setback. Can you clarify that? And then I just want to know, when will this text amendment be effective, the projected date after it goes through all the processes?
Thank you for that question. So right now, in districts R6 and above, the rules for solar arrays on rooftops, I think, let me double check this, but I think it's a 25% coverage cap, and there's a mandatory 6 foot setback from the facade, and this will, in this proposal, there will be a possibility to have 100%, like up to, I don't want to misspeak on this, but I believe like up to the roof line, but I'll get, or up to the edge of the roof. I will get clarification on that. And the canopy can be 15 feet high.
So I'm not talking about a canopy. I'm talking about the on a flat roof, not a canopy, just the regular, I forget what the word is for the solars on a flat roof. It's very difficult to get a canopy in a landmark area. I agree with Liz on that, but on these lower level projected solar panels. I just want to confirm 100% coverage, not having to deal with the 6-foot setback. And I just want to know if there's anything in this text amendment that will relax the 6 feet required path for FDNY
Well, I think, okay, so
without going through an extensive variance process to possibly relax it to 4 feet.
Right.
Got it.
Sorry, just to add on that. So, the agency has had in-depth consultations with multiple other agencies, including FDNY. In terms of the solar panels, I believe there was actually increased to 9 feet instead of the 6 feet for the flat roof, but I can confirm that with you.
Thank you.
I think we can continue.
Okay, great.
When will this be effective? Can you just give us a rough estimate?
Oh, yeah. It will. So in July, there's going to be, right now, it's all the community boards have the referral package. They'll have 60 days to review. There'll be a public hearing in July. The CPC will vote in August, and then the city council will vote on the proposed text amendment sometime in October.
Oh, thank you. So within the next 9 months, 12,
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
Right, and
You
the
probably have
build
that
year,
mapped out.
and the build year for this is 2033, so 10 years from now, where what was analyzed in the environmental assessment statement. But it will go in effect now.
I think we can get started again. Great. Could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. All right, so the third goal, decarbonizing our vehicles, supports the decarbonization of 2 million private vehicles that New Yorkers drive and own. By 2035, Albany has indicated that all new vehicles sold in the state will need to be zero emission. And finally, we recognize that the future isn't all about vehicles, especially in dense localities in Manhattan. So the more trips that can be taken by bicycle, by foot, by scooter, or by transit, the better it is for the health and the environment of our city. Next slide. Within this context, zoning can support this vehicle and transit decarbonization with 5 key changes. The first is we can allow commercial charging facilities in all commercial and manufacturing districts. Right now, they're currently prohibited in about half of the city's commercial districts. Second, we can allow building owners to designate a portion of their existing parking spaces as public EV charger sharing spaces. These are the same rules that currently apply today for car sharing vehicles in existing parking garages and lots. Third, we can allow for more flexible use of public parking lots, public parking garages, and commercial accessory parking facilities by allowing car rental, car sharing, commercial vehicle storage, and public EV charging within these facilities too. Fourth, we can expand special rules that allow for indoor automated parking facilities to be available to everyone citywide. Right now, these rules only apply in Manhattan. And fifth, we can update our parking rules to boost public bicycle parking and allow bike parking facilities in commercial districts. Next slide. Our fourth and final goal is decarbonizing our waste streams. This goal centers on reducing our city's stormwater waste and solid waste, which will help reduce the carbon emissions associated with both of those waste streams. First, we can reduce stormwater runoff by promoting greater permeability on site. This means less water flowing to energy-intensive wastewater treatment plants. Second, up to 45% of our waste stream is organic material that doesn't need to go to landfill and can be reused within the city. Diverting organic material from landfill reduces the energy costs associated with hauling and processing garbage. Third, we can reduce the carbon emissions associated with our food by promoting more local food production on our city's rooftops. Next slide. Within this context, zoning can contribute to a better environment in 4 key ways. First, clarifying zoning's paving rules to ensure that permeable paving, which allows water to infiltrate the soil right where it falls, is always allowed. Second, updating our zoning street tree requirements to allow for new high-performance tree bed types, such as connected tree beds and rain gardens. 3, our zoning resolution right now doesn't even mention the words compost or the word recycling, and it's time to add specific rules clarifying where these uses are allowed to help these sectors grow. And finally, rooftop greenhouses are allowed on top of non-residential buildings, but to build one, current rules require owners to obtain a certification from the chair of the City Planning Commission. And by streamlining this requirement, we will allow DOP to review applications for building permits, which is a move that will cut costs and simplify the process for people who want to grow food on their rooftops. Next slide. That concludes our overview of the 17 specific zoning changes we've identified to support the decarbonization of New York to keep our city green, healthy, and equitable for years to come. Now I'm going to quickly review timelines and next steps and then open up the floor to questions. Next slide. As a citywide zoning text amendment, the review process will continue for the next several months. Right now, 59 community boards are reviewing this proposal with their borough boards and the borough president. And in July, the CPC will hold a public hearing on the proposed changes. And in August, the commission will vote on approving or modifying the proposal, and then it will pass on to the city council. The council will then have 50 days to ultimately adopt the zoning changes and enact them into law. That concludes our presentation on the City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality text amendment. And I'll turn the mic over to Signe and the committee for questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Committee, any questions? Other than what we've already asked. I see a lot of answers or a lot of details from Jose in the chat, so please check the chat.
You can tell I haven't done my homework yet. How many pages is the zoning text amendment?
163 pages. I am on page 60, so I skim it really quick. I mean, this was referred out March 24th, I think. No, sorry, May 24th. No, April 24th, right? I can't remember now anymore. I was out when you were referring out. So.
We do read our zoning text amendments on MCB9. So good to know our homework. Okay, yeah, I will hold my questions. But were you guys keeping a track of some of the questions that we asked and we'll get follow up on?
I mean, I believe I responded to all the ones that came out in the chat, and I can go back to it was for the building height, specifically about the mechanical heads, the landmarks and historic districts, and the FDNY, measurements, and the sun green updated text. So I have answers for those in the text. And also, I just wanted to highlight too that a lot of these texts perhaps are very easy to read because there's a lot of addition to things that are not changing, right? So for example, like I was just finding it very easy to read in terms of like changing what automobiles or cars instead of, they just had called it vehicles total. So it's just accommodating the zoning text to reflect the actual, environment right now. But we will be here in June as well. If Signe or Barry, you have additional questions that you can send our way, we're happy to, come back. We might not be able to do another presentation, but we can send answers in advance and hope to, answer more during that meeting.
Okay. Thanks so much. We have some work to do, committee. I will post this in our Google Drive too, just so that we all have access. Yes, Kitty, you can read it too, all 163 pages. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. I believe that brings us to our last presentation of the evening. The Vadats, you are here, yes?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Saba Baghdad. This is Mujan Baghdad, my father, and we have
Thank you for the correct pronunciation. That is very helpful.
former council member Robert Cornegie and presiding elder of Child's Memorial Temple Church of God in Christ, Kevin Christopher joining us as well.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay. So many of you might know this journey of Child's Memorial. April was also very involved in what would happen with this building. I know her wish and our wish has always been for more family housing in this site. So there's been a few meetings with you all, and I think we have a letter that we want to propose in our action items tonight. So perhaps you can bring us up to speed a bit from where we've come from.
Of course, we have a small PowerPoint presentation.
You should be able to share your screen.
I'm having some trouble.
While she's sharing or getting it together, I do want to kind of speak to my presence here. While it may be confusing, because at least the first three presenters actually touched on things that I covered as the former chair of housing and buildings, and I bit my tongue the entire time, whether it was Vince, whether it was retrofitting buildings, like most of those bills were my bills. So thank you for the walk down memory lane. But tonight I'm actually here. My presence is representative of my commitment to highlight developers that I've worked with in former capacities and in my district. We spend a lot of time sometimes vilifying bad actors. And I just wanted to come on to say that I had the opportunity to work with these developers in particular in my district when I was a city council member. And not only did they honor every aspect of what the project called for, but went above and beyond to make sure that my community was taken care of. And in reading through and working with them on this particular project, which is, kind of very heartfelt for me as it relates to women and children in shelter at this particular time. They actually included things in this project that I didn't think to ask for in my projects, including, but not limited to, the ability to house family members that are pets in the building that they're proposing, as well as many things that they'll go through during the presentation. But I wanted to be clear that my presence here represents my commitment to highlighting those developers who have been responsible developers, and I can say firsthand from what they did in my district and what they left in my district. So I just wanted to come on to say that.
Very good. I've got your presentation up.
Thank you so much.
It worked.
Thank
worked.
you.
It's the last page.
Is that the last page? Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's go to the first page. There we go.
Okay, good evening, everybody. While they're getting that together, I am Elder Kevin Christopher representing Child's Memorial Temple. And I'm going to speak a few moments just to the historical context of our church as it relates to the community of Harlem and this great district. Excuse me. Child's Memorial was started in 1958, so we have a very long history with this community. It was started under the Bishop Alvin A. Childs, under the original name of Faith Temple. Our church has an extensive history of being a beacon and a light of hope in the community. Even under Bishop Childs and his administration in 1965, during the demise of Malcolm X, when all other households of faith closed their doors out of fear to house his funeral,
it was then our church only was the only one that stood tall and said that, hey, we would house it regardless of bomb threats and everything else, because we understood, regardless of any faith differences, regardless of anything other than the unification of what Malcolm X brought to Harlem and the African-American community, we decided that we would bring him to our household of faith and we would house his funeral regardless of anything else. And then under our leader following Bishop Charles, Bishop Quick, who many of you may even know, who was our former leader, Bishop Quick in 1982 started a school. And he was able to bring private school quality to a low-income community where they did not have to pay the typical prices, but they got the same quality. They got the same academic, prestige, education, the textbooks and the same education, same teachers. And so even under him, under Bishop Quick, they were able to also receive not only schools, but there was Boy Scouts programs. There was feeding programs. He even at one point in time allowed the church to house what was then called the United Homeless Organization, which then at that time offered public services for homeless people and homeless disenfranchised. And so now, even under our current leader, Bishop Kevin Griffin, the church continues to want to help the community, even with this project. So we have created a CDC in the name of Bishop Quick Multipurpose Center, in which we continue to develop programs and policies that we would like to work on to continue to work with not only this developer, but this community to continue to build and continue to assist. So as we have even met with Mr. Weinberg and we've spoken and we've developed ideas, we've already currently began working with Columbia University, GED programs. We've already begun working and doing various things. And so we have a history in this community of being a beacon of hope and just helping. We have a feeding program, which we do once a month. So we've been in the community for over 50 years. We continue to help. And so we do support this women's shelter. We do support it. We throw our support behind it. And I just want to say, as I get ready to turn it over to the Vadats, that I would like to remind everybody or bring to your attention that as we look at, I know that as I spoke to Mr. Barry, I understand that the concern is the population of the shelter population. But as we look at it, the population of shelters are vastly changing. I personally, outside of my work as clergy, I work in mental health. And what I have found in my professional capacity is that the homeless population is no longer those suffering from mental illness or no longer just those suffering from substance abuse. We are now finding that many people that are finding themselves in need of shelters are finding themselves in that predicament because they're being priced out of their homes, not because of any negligence on their own part. So I just want us to keep that in mind as we move forward with this project, that some of these women and children are just simply at the mercy of some unsavory landowners. And I've heard a lot of good things earlier from some of the previous presenters. And so you all are doing great work, and I hope that we will continue to work together. Thank you.
Right.
Would you like me to answer that question, if I may? I see
Oh,
the question.
is there a question?
So why not?
It
There is a
may
question.
help.
Why not
It may
affordable
help.
housing?
Oh,
Before we get into questions, it may help to hear the presentation.
yes. Back to the Vadats is what I was trying to say. Yeah.
We can go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
Thank you. We've partnered with Child's Memorial Church to rebuild the church. In the new project, the church will have a brand new condominium that they will own and will fit the needs of the congregation and be built out to their specifications, their design, as well as a parsonage. Really the development of 1763 Amsterdam Avenue is focused on making sure the church remains at the site and continues their service to the community at the property. The rest of the air rights of the project is to be developed by our firm. My father started Elmo Realty about 35 years ago, and our focus has been investing and building in the Harlem community with our office on 108th Street and First Avenue. And I saw a question about why not build affordable housing. And we were working with a prominent affordable housing developer to build affordable housing at this site. We were in contract, and unfortunately, the affordable housing developer rescinded the contract due to outside circumstances that were unrelated to our ability to build the project. And Mujan, if you can perhaps talk about why that may be.
There was an investigation by the Attorney General's office, which was completed in February 12th, 2021. And there were no fines or penalties assessed to me or Elmo or the development team. And we were free to continue our development with the properties. There was some not understanding that Broadway Housing had with talks with the Attorney General's office. So they had rescinded it. Therefore, we started negotiating again with the Department of Homeless Services for a very well thought homeless shelter. This is a family shelter, and as Mr. Carnegie mentioned, one of the features is it's a pet-friendly shelter. We all know that going through a trauma of becoming a homeless for children, how difficult it is, and add to that losing their pets, that makes it a lot more difficult. So we proposed, I think it's the first pet-friendly shelter. And to Audrey's point, this will be a 100% electric building, and part of the electric, of course, will go to Con Edison grid, and we will have some clean energy rooftop solar panels as well. You want to explain what the construction is?
Of course, if you could go to the next slide, please. It's an 8-story building, which is built as of right. And we have about 121 units. We will, since the property will be deemed as a homeless shelter, we worked in conjunction with the church to identify how we can transition some of the residents or assist the not-for-profit not-for-profits running the facility to transition residents into permanent affordable housing. And we have a existing housing few doors down that will commit to capping the rents to 80% AMI, and to provide that as a pledge to the community to keep permanent affordable housing. And we will be very happy to dedicate the naming rights of that building in memory of April Tyler, who we've heard so much about. And it would be an honor for us to have an unveiling ceremony of 1793 Amsterdam Avenue, as well as a community benefits endowment that will be used at the community board's discretion of $250,000.
Thank you. Does that conclude the presentation?
What questions you have, we'll be happy to answer.
Okay, so we're ready for questions. I'd like to ask folks to raise your hand, and we'll go one at a time that way. If you can't raise your hand, feel free to make note of your hand in the video or let us know. First hand I see is Tiffany Kahn.
Hi, thank you for being here. Could you repeat again the reason why it's not possible to build permanent affordable housing for this site?
It doesn't make financial sense.
Okay. There are grants and subsidies that the city offers that would allow for that type of development to, how is a shelter more financially viable?
The grants that is offered are very time, it takes a lot of time to do it. And we looked at it. The only way that we can make sense of this building and have a church there is to have a homeless shelter. And again, we are very thoughtful about how this building is going to be.
Could you just break down the numbers a little bit though? How is a shelter more financially sensible?
Tiffany, if I can give some additional clarity, I think what Mr. Vakdat is referring to is, we had this agreement to develop deeply affordable and supportive housing. The Attorney General's office kind of ruined that agreement. So no thank you, Tish James. But one of the results of that investigation was a required timeline imposed by the Charities Bureau on the project to get the church sanctuary completed. And so, as we know, HPD is moving very slowly on Home First grants for individual home buyers. They are moving even more slowly on project-specific subsidies like Mix and Match and other programs to the tune of like 2 to 3 years, which would completely blow out of the water the timeline imposed by the Attorney General's office. So the subsidies required to make it make financial sense take so long to get that they would run afoul of the mandatory timeline imposed by the Attorney General's office. Because we did ask this question previously. And for those who aren't familiar with the project, this first came before us when April was co-chair of the committee in, I want to say, January 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And so this has been a 6-year plus journey where there was an original shelter proposal. We worked with Empire and the church to get deeply affordable and supportive housing proposed for the site. It was like exactly what we wanted. And then the Attorney General came in. And then there was kind of a frozen period. And then there was this imposed timeline that really only allows for the private development of the site, in which case it is anchored by the lease guarantee from homeless services, which then allows for private financing to construct the site rather than public subsidized financing, which would take longer than the Attorney General's office allows. We have worked this from many angles over the past 6 years. But I think there is a question in the chat from Lisa. I assume that's Lisa Edmiston. The question is about the unit breakdown in the shelter, and that's something I see that's mentioned on the slide, but if you have specifics, that might be helpful.
Of course, we have about 118 large studio units with there are individual units. It's not dormitory style. Each unit has a full bathroom, a full kitchen, and about 9 2-bedroom units, also with individual bathrooms and kitchens. Again, there is about 3,500 square feet of community space to support the residents. There is on-site case managers, nutritious meals will be served. There will be 24/7 security. It will be a very well-run building. We have built quite a few shelters that are really beautiful residential buildings.
For clarifying, so you said how many studios?
About 118.
And so I'm curious if you have 118 studios, it's really not a shelter for families.
At the request of the community board, what we've done is increased the size of the studio apartments to match mothers with children. This is actually the demographic that DHS is looking for, although they can't guarantee what intake they would have. But this is a demographic that we are building this shelter on to suit.
Right. No, thank you for that. I understand that that might be what's being presented, but families, a mother with 2 or 3 kids and a dog in a studio is rough.
It is. I don't think that the DHS is looking to bring in a mother with 3 children into that unit. I think what they're trying to do is to bring in either a lactating mother or a mother with a toddler.
If I can clarify, it's an expecting mother or a mother plus 1 child.
Yeah, but you can't control who's
No, we can't control, and nor we. But I think what DHS can do is send. They do have different programs and the different demographics for different shelters.
And so, thank you. And what is the cost of the apartments that are for sale? What's the range?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
It says condominium, so that you're also going to be selling. Maybe I'm misunderstood.
No, I'm sorry. The church is a condominium, which they will have, and they will own the condominium. The rest of the building will be another condominium, which just the units it's not a condominium units.
And what's the price range for the condominiums that will be for sale? What's the price range?
There won't be any condominiums for sale. It's one residential condominium that will be operated by a non-for-profit in conjunction with DHS. So the only condominium will be the church condominium.
And the church condominium, is that apartments?
It's a church and one apartment, which is a parsonage for the pastor. And there's no sale. It will be given back to the church. We will construct it for the church and give it back to the church.
It's like a commercial condominium, except a nonprofit.
I guess I don't understand.
The condominium just means that within the building there will be two owners. The church will own their space, and then the rest of the building will be owned by Empire Fund LLC, and it will be used as a shelter. So the only owners will be the church and the developer. There will not be any sale of residential units to purchasers.
Oh, okay, so the building will be a shelter,
Yes.
which if we lose our fight at 1767, then you walk 2 blocks and now we have supportive housing, walk a few blocks, and now you have a shelter.
Correct.
I'm concerned.
I have my hand raised for a specific reason, which is that to clarify that the $250,000 community benefits fund is to be the Hamilton Heights community fund, which will be held at the New York Community Trust, which is a nonprofit that basically manages funds with a specific mission or mandate as a charity, and they can be advised funds. So in the case of this fund, the community board will give advisory recommendations to the charitable trust, and the charitable trust will fund projects based in part on the community board's recommendation. The model is very similar to the Morningside Heights Community Fund, which was set up and is advised by Morningside Heights Community Coalition, many members of whom are here tonight. So just wanted to clarify and add some details on that. But I do want to emphasize for people that, and you can correct me if I get the timeline wrong, but the Attorney General's office is mandating that a building be constructed here within 2 years. The Attorney General's office does not give a shit what building is built as long as there is a sanctuary for the church in that building. This lack of shits given, I'm sorry, I'm tired and I'm jet lagged, resulted in our plan for affordable housing being torpedoed. And so as a result, this is where we are tonight. And it's been a 6+ year journey with Empire / Elmo and the Vadats. And, you know, I, as a committee member who later became chair of the board throughout this process, I want to acknowledge that it has been a remarkable kind of saga that we have been through. And while this is not the outcome that we wanted when we first began these discussions, it is probably the best outcome possible under the current externally imposed legal obligations by the Attorney General's office. That is kind of my personal take on this as a committee member.
If I may, Barry, you're absolutely right. We would like to do an affordable housing project at this site, which is why we explored and entered into a contract with Broadway Housing. Unfortunately, due to that time restraint of developing the church and the property within 2 years, it would be impossible for us to now go back, work with HPD to secure a regulatory agreement to build affordable housing on 1763 Amsterdam Avenue, which is why for 1793 Amsterdam Avenue, we would commit to securing a regulatory agreement and providing those units as permanent affordable housing. Mr. Corning, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that, I serve a similar demographic in my district. And when faced with the choice between having under an as of right project, having market rate or above was never even entered into what we were attempting to do in terms of bringing down. So we, faced with those choices, I think it's incredibly important to note that these families through the ancillary project or the ancillary building can be integrated into the community as long-term residents with affordable rents. I've literally never seen that done before, and I have to say that is one of the things, and one of the reasons I'm on the call is because of the commitment that was made in my district, and because of the benefits that were worked out in this instance. So yes, everybody would love to have more deeply affordable housing in communities that are similar to the community that you guys represent. But in the absence of the ability to do that based on these timelines, it's just important to note what an incredible opportunity it could be for some women and children trying to reintegrate themselves in large instances to where they actually come from.
The other point that I would like to add is that we also discussed both with Broadway Housing and with Elmo Empire doing a rezoning for the site to make it financially viable to do affordable housing, but we ran into the same problem as with HPD financing, which is that similar to HPD, the Department of City Planning is also facing staff shortages and is taking forever, meaning 18 to 24 months in some instances, to certify applications for rezoning, which would again not comply with the Attorney General's office's timeline. So we have tried to pull every lever in the book that we have with great cooperation from the Vadats, but the Attorney General's office has been most inflexible and unhelpful.
Can you tell us why, Barry?
Can I tell you why?
It's in their DNA.
Yeah, I mean that they are lawyers is the first part of this answer, and thus they are only concerned with what their office is concerned with, which is compliance in the New York Charities law. And when a nonprofit such as a church sells substantially all of their assets, like a church building and land, the Attorney General's office is obligated to make sure that the proceeds of that sale are used for charitable purposes. In this case, to be used in the construction of a new sanctuary. The timeline on this process having been extended was in fact the only thing that they cared about, and making sure that that sanctuary was constructed within a certain amount of time was the only thing they cared about. They did not care, and we did meet with them, for the record. We met with the Charities Bureau sometime during COVID. I want to say 2020. And we impressed upon them the importance that we would rather this project be done correctly than have kind of bare minimum compliance with the law and not result in the best project possible. And they kind of told us that they did not care. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Juan, but basically we are concerned about permanent affordable housing and well-run supportive housing in our neighborhood, and the Attorney General's office is not.
Thank you, Barry. There were conversations with the church and the elders here that the church was offered actually compensation with just not having a church there. But the church is very adamant about this. They want to be there. They've been there for many years and they want to be there. So the church is going to be there. We have to construct a building there. And again, this is the best scenario that we have. We tried to make it as palatable as possible by building a building which is state of art, and it is by giving also one of our other buildings, which is very close by and next block to this, as a affordable housing. We've done whatever is possible to be done. Again, you know, I have signed a document with the Attorney General's office, which I can't really go into details of what they've done to us, but the people who know Charities Bureau and the Attorney General's office, they know what they can do.
We are asking for the community board's help on this project to build the church condominium and to make sure that the project is successful. We are here for your input. If there are other suggestions of ways to help the community, we would like to take it under serious consideration and implement what the community board may need in addition. But we are here for your help and support.
Are there any more questions? Mr. Carnegie, is that a legacy hand?
It was up, and I just jumped in. I apologize for being rude, but it was up from before. But I do want to point out, lastly, that the configuration of the units actually changed considerably based on the consideration of families and making sure that it was conducive to reintegrating people into the community. So the 9 2-bedrooms that were mentioned, which would serve for larger families, as well as changing the actual floor plan in terms of per square footage per unit, taking that into consideration. And that was under advisement based on preliminary conversations with the community board. So that demonstrates, again, a willingness, like Saba mentioned, to do whatever is necessary to be a good corporate citizen within the community and to provide a service that obviously is needed based on the rates of homelessness that we're experiencing in the city, in particular with women and families.
Anything further? Tiffany?
I'm just going to be perfectly honest. April wanted permanent, affordable housing. She said that unambiguously. This is not something that she would be pleased with. It's not something that I am happy with either. There are ways that we can make this project something that the community would be happy with. And I'm also going to be honest about other concerns that I have. I would, I'm this article from The Real Deal is something else that I'm just astounded by how we in this community keep being given these proposals that are between a rock and a hard place, between bad and worse. So no, I'm sorry. This is not something.
Tiffany, did you get cut off or was that? Okay, Tiffany, if you had more, let me know. Juan?
Yeah, I've seen people, single women who needed shelter, going to the Bronx to get shelter. And I've seen really bad situations developing in this neighborhood where we have contractors who don't really care and don't listen to us, and they don't even change their plans to what we need, or even willing to listen to people. And I don't think what the people who have presented tonight came even close to that. I think they're open to listening. And I don't know, as bad as it looks, it feels like this is not as bad as it could be. Whereas the other projects that we have been battling, they don't even listen. They don't even care. They give us nothing. And we have to fight them with all we got. But at least here, it's a sense of, we're there for you and we tried, 6 years is a long time. And 2 years is a very short time to get something done construction wise. So that's my little bit that I wanted to say.
The other thing that we sometimes see is that a shelter today, overnight, the rug could be pulled from under the people who are occupying that space. That happened right in Morningside on 111th Street, where a women's shelter, almost overnight, these ladies had to leave with their children. What sort of assurance would the people in that shelter even have that they can continue to occupy that space?
The Department of Homeless Services is giving the operator a 9-year lease. I don't know of any as built to suit shelter that has been closed. There are unfortunately shelters that were occupied as of necessity, and they don't meet the FDNY or HPD or DHS requirements, and they are dangerous and they need to be closed. But this is as built, we are building it to suit for DHS. And we are betting our money that they're going to occupy that for the next 30, 40 years. And Mr. Weinberg brought this issue up as well. And I am willing to give a written guarantee that as long as we own the property, this will remain a shelter. We are not looking for anything else. It's being built as a shelter, and it will remain a shelter.
Yeah, to clarify, the concern that we raised that April actually raised to start at the beginning of this process was that an all studio building in this neighborhood could be very tempting target for conversion into private student housing, which is something that we've seen. There was something constructed in Morningside Heights, a couple of buildings actually that are essentially that type of building. And, you know, as much, you know, intense discussion as a shelter generates, I think we can all agree that the last thing the neighborhood needs is more luxury student housing. And so that commitment is something that we requested and appreciated. But I want to zoom out for a moment to Juan's point that this is a 6-year process. When we were first presented with this proposal back in, I want to say January 2017, the proposal was for an entirely studio unit building with no written guarantee that it would not be sold to a student dormitory provider, that that also did not include a community benefits agreement, included no larger unit sizes, and did not include a second building being converted into permanent affordable housing a block or two away. So this is the evolution. This is the kind of final chapter of the 6-month saga, but the first chapter was a proposal that was much different from this, that had no 1 or 2 bedroom units, that did not include permanent affordable housing at a second site, and that did not have a community benefits agreement, or community benefits fund, I guess I should say. And so, you know, while there was perhaps an even better deal at the 3 or 4 year mark, that was taken away from us by the Attorney General. This is a substantial improvement in my book, I think, over what we were first presented with in 2017.
So we need to move on soon. I see I'm going to take these final 2 hands. We do have this as an action item later. So let's keep moving here. Elder Christopher.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to a moment to the integrity of the dots. I know that there's been a lot of negative press, and I don't want to go into too many details, but I do want to speak with more personal knowledge as I've been working with them intimately and dealing with the Attorney General's office throughout this ordeal. And I want to say that I saw a comment, the developers are about money. I cannot speak to all developers, but I can speak to this developer. And I can tell you that there has been times where this developer has been more than willing to give the church back their property and walk away at a loss to his own self. I can stand here, as I started this earlier, we are also members of this community. We have been members of this community since 1958. We have decided as a church to continue working with him because we want our church. We have chosen to continue doing business with him because for years, we have tried to get other developers who have tried to pillage the church, who have tried to rob us, who have tried to cheat us, who have put us in even worse deals. And so this is the first valuable deal that we have had to get a new church. And so it's unfortunate some of the tops and turbies that we've gone through to get here. But I can say with assurance, as I have gotten to know them over these past few years, it's not about the money for them. You know, I know business is business, but there's so much involved here. This one is not about money. They have given more than enough opportunities with attorneys involved. It's not just talk. With attorneys involved, documented opportunities to give it back, keep the money. Not about that. He has shown time and time again that he and his company, his daughter, his family, they are trying to do right by this church and by this community. You know, he wants to do right. our hands are tied, as Mr. Weinberg has tried his best to articulate. The Attorney General has literally tied everybody's hands. And so with time restraints and with the guidelines that we have been given, and I don't know if you know, but even churches, although there is a separation of church and state, churches are religious, but then there's also a corporation portion in which the law gives the Attorney General general oversight of that portion of the church. So they have that general oversight of us, and they have our hands tied as much as the developers. So this is not what we would like, but this is the best course of action with where we have been placed. And so I agree with Mr. Weinberg that we have to sort of play the best hand we've been dealt. And so I'm hoping that you will, kind of give these developers a break. Don't throw them with the rest of them, because I can attest to their character. They have integrity. Thank you.
And I would just be remiss if I don't generally address comments in a comment section, but someone in the comments said, take it to your district. And they must have missed the part that I'm here because they developed in my district, actually. And we got, as a community, not only a great structure, but a commitment and community integration and all the things that make people feel safe and at home, not only in the shelter, but in the community. So, and we've had issues. I represent Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights. So I don't know if we want to do saturation to saturation, but that's always been an issue within communities of color. But I want to ensure that I can stand up for the work that was done in my community while I was the council member, and what my community has experienced in a relationship with this particular developer. So, I generally don't address every comment, but the fact that we developed with them in our community and are continually happy with the finished product.
Okay, so I have one more hand and we really need to move on after that. Annette, we would love to hear your comments.
Hi, as a member of the board, I understand. I'm one who believes every opportunity that we get, we need to go for 100% affordable housing. And that is something the members of this board and April were always fighting for. The part that we're missing, and because we're invested in affordable housing, is we feel as if we've been dealt a raw hand, and we were by the Attorney General. And this is the best that we could have gotten, and this owner did their best to give us something, right? Is it enough? Absolutely not. But it was the hand that was dealt to us. And at least there are going to be some mothers who are going to have, even if it is just a room in a new building, they're going to have the opportunity to get permanent for affordable housing down the road. And it may even be people that are from our community. This is what we're working with. It's not what we want, but it's what we have. And so it's not to beat the messenger, but they've come before us and they've given us the best that they could. Is it enough? No, but we can work with it. It's something. April, it would have been at this table as long as we got something that benefited the people who need it the most. And no one can deny that women that are homeless with children don't deserve a decent place to stand. I want to believe that she would have been willing to work with this. So I would say, yes, I understand people being disgruntled, but let's, this is what we have, and it is something.
I know we all struggle with, would April want this? Would April not want this? I've struggled with that ever since she left us, because she always knew the answers. She always seemed to have the answers. And I know we all struggle with what we wanted her mission, her dream to be, move that forward. I don't think it's exactly what she would have wanted, but I think she would have been with us when we had to make a hard decision. We're in a timeline. And I think I think April is, she's looking down on us, telling us to do the best we can under the circumstances that we have. And I struggle, I do, everyone, I struggle because I want what's right for this community. And I want to do what's right by April too.
And so with this hand, you guys worked out what was the best option available. And it may not be fully pleasing to some, because on the table, we want 100% affordable. It's not there. This is what we're working with. Sometimes we're thankful, and this is the end result. Okay, so you take a breath and stop crying. April will not want you crying.
I know it's been a hard couple of weeks in general, so there's other stuff going on. But yeah,
all right, so you can see that our board members and committee members are vested in this.
Yeah,
and this is the result, and we would just ask for some grace.
Yeah, and Signy, you know, I cried too in the meeting where the news was broken that the Broadway housing deal fell apart.
You called me with tears. I know.
Yeah. So I've been there.
Yeah. Okay.
I promise you will do the right thing. Whatever is in my power, I know how vested and how emotional everyone is. I promise I'm going to do whatever I can. And just for the record, 1793 Amsterdam Avenue was the first building I bought 45 years ago. When I entered into a business as a young man, that was the first building I bought. So I do value that building.
And I just want to say on behalf of the church, I do apologize that you all have to have this difficult choice. And so we do apologize. We did not put you here, but I do apologize and I empathize with you because it is not fair to you, you know, and we do, as a church, we do support your fight, and we too agree with more affordable housing. You know, we see what's happening in the community, so we're 100% behind you. But again, you know, we apologize that you're in this difficult position.
Okay, we really need to move on. Ewan, is it something quick? Okay, she's put her hand.
Yeah, she put it in the chat about the ground floor.
All right, the church will be on the ground floor.
And the cellar. One floor and the cellar.
Yeah. Okay, we need to put this to a close and we'll get back to it at action items. Liz, could we hit the next section?
Sure. Can Saba, can you stop sharing so we can put the agenda back up?
I think that's me. That's me. I stopped.
Oh,
I'll put the agenda back.
So I think we are going to go through old.
I don't believe there's any new, so.
Yeah, well, new business, old business, and then we will come back to our various action items. Some of the action items are not due this week, but we will start that discussion. So before we move on to old business, is there any other new business that anyone would like to bring up? Going once.
I have a under 60-second thing, which is just some people may have read in the news, Sugar Hill Capital Partners, which was a predatory equity company that bought up a lot of buildings and ran them poorly and pushed out rent-stabilized residents in our community. They kind of went under. It's now Tri-Hill, and the loans were owned by Signature Bank, which was, of course, shut down by the FDIC. And the loans are up for auction. So I would like us to invite leaders from the Tri-Hill Tenants Coalition, which are tenants of these buildings owned by this owner, which is a predatory equity slumlord, to our June meeting to kind of talk about what they're facing. Many of the buildings are in our district, and we could talk about ways, to assist them in ameliorating the situation and getting the repairs they need, and also, restabilizing apartments that have been illegally deregulated.
Okay, great, noted. So we will, you have the contact information for
One of the
Tenants
tenant
Association?
organizers, yeah.
All right, Signy and I will reach out
Yeah,
to them.
and Senator Robert Jackson's office has done a lot of work helping this coalition. So even though he's not our state senator anymore, I'm sure he'd be willing to help us get connected.
And is there a list of properties that have been impacted by this?
Yes, I will try to put a link in the chat.
Okay, great. Any other new business? Okay, thanks, Barry. So moving on to old business. Number one, legislation we are watching. I don't know, the budget in Albany is done. Is there any other legislation, Barry, that we should, that has a possibility of moving forward?
Yeah, Ronstein has amended his bill, or submitted a new version of his bill. The Assembly doesn't do amendments to the J51 replacement. Now it is much more explicitly geared towards green retrofits, the property tax breaks, but covers a lot of the same stuff that J51 did. I don't know if Miriam has an update there. I don't know if Miriam actually is still on, but that is something that we should poke the state electeds about and see if they can actually try to get this passed.
Okay. Can you update us on that between now and the next meeting? And we'll put this on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, and I'll try to find the bill number too.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Is there anything else that's coming up citywide? See, there's conversations in the chat. I don't know if this is about. No, okay. So moving on to developments we are watching, like 1763, there are a number of other issues going on in the neighborhood. Last month, we had the developers of the project on 145th Street. And I apologize, I don't remember the name of the AIDS organization. I know I walked by that, I think yesterday, and there are big dumpsters out front. So that interior build out looks like it has commenced. And I think in terms of 1727, I know Signy and I had connected the other day, just trying to go through this agenda and making sure that we had everything that we need. I know 1727 is still outstanding. We are waiting on the renderings. We haven't seen them yet. Barry, have you seen any final renderings or anything more than the exterior elevation? I think that's the only thing that I've seen on it, but we are expecting them next month.
I've heard nothing
Yes.
last we spoke to them.
Yeah. So that will come back, as we all know. Anything else? I can just report that there is no update on 142nd Street. The scaffolding is still there. I have seen no construction going on at all. And it really just, I continue to personally monitor the DOB files for those buildings. There was a statement of no harassment for the tenants in one building. The irony is that there hasn't been a tenant in that one building that they had the no harassment form on in at least 15 to 20 years, because it was a single family home and she hadn't lived there. She hasn't lived there in many, many years. Yeah, and they harassed out all the other tenants. Yeah, they didn't ask me if I was harassed. I could give them a long story about what that cost me when they kicked us out of the last building. Any other developments? Anything new?
Oh, we forgot to do announcements, and I do see people have some announcements, perhaps.
For their announcements?
I think when you have an announcement of your conference, I want to give you a moment to announce that. Oh, her mic's not working. So she has a historic preservation conference at City College on June 10th. Community space for the residents could be placed as elsewhere and give back the commercial space to the, that's okay, then that's something else, I think. And if you could send us the details on June 10th in the chat, that would be great.
Ewan, is it on your website? Should I just go there and grab the link? I don't know if I can multitask. But...
She's going to send it to CB9. Okay. Still finalizing panelists. All right. Thanks, Ewan. So save the date, though. June 10th is what she's saying.
Okay, great. All right. So back to any other announcements? Public member updates.
I don't have any public member updates, just to say, if there's anybody on the call who's interested in applying to be a public member, I'll put my info in the chat and please reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you about it and send you a form. I think we have at least one position open, maybe two. So just let me know, but that's it. No other updates. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Next on our list is NYCHA. I know we continue to monitor on Manhattanville houses. Are there any updates on the NYCHA developments, Annette or Barry?
I can just tell you that I reached out to Donald Notice at West Harlem Group Assistance. They are the nonprofit involved in the redevelopment there, and he will come to our June meeting to give us whatever update they can on that.
And I want to flag that Grant Houses is experiencing some water problems in addition to their heat problems. And so, it remains incumbent on NYCHA to fix those, and we'll be reaching out to management to try to understand their timeline on this and whether or not they're taking it seriously. Sorry, that's in Grant Houses, not Manhattanville. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, you said that.
You did. Okay, I made a note, Sydney, about Donald coming next month.
Yes, we had a full meeting, so I asked him to come next month, which works for us.
We'll have another full meeting.
Indeed.
Anything else, NYCHA, that we should discuss? Okay. Next on the list is Morningside Heights Community Coalition. Is Mr. Stern Anyone here from MHCC tonight?
I'm here too, and we have a resolution pending. We would love to be able to discuss that. We've been on the call for 3 hours, so we would love to discuss it now, if possible.
We are, let's see, we have the reso down there, so we're almost there. We're like very close.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just, we'll keep going. RKO, Hamilton Theater. I don't see Dan Cohen here. I don't know if anyone else has any updates about RKO. I think the last I talked to Dan was that he needs to get the committee back together. I think there have been some setbacks in terms of anchor organizations participating. I know I continue to have conversations with architects and an architect with a developer that are interested in the historic aspects of renovating that building and doing the affordable housing. And I've been chatting with Dan about that. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll be for next month, but maybe by the fall, we'll be able to come back and have another strategy for the RKO.
We can talk about Till in the action items, Liz.
Talk about, okay, so we'll skip till HDFC updates. Is there anyone here from the HDFC coalition? Any other HDFC updates that we should talk about?
The DEP water bill amnesty has been extended. And there's a semi-secret deeper amnesty discount for HDFCs and other affordable housing developments. I sent it out via email, I think. Assemblywoman Inez Dickens sent us the details on it, and then I shared it wider. I can put it in the chat as soon as I finish this other chat thing for the Braunstein bill. But basically, if a building owes DEP like water bills to the city, and it's an HDFC or Mitchell Lama or another affordable housing building, the DEP, which normally imposes very onerous payment terms and interest and penalties, has a program now where they are, for a very limited time, erasing a bunch of fees and penalties and interest in exchange for down payments and repayment agreements. So I'll put a link to that in the chat.
Thanks, Barry. And I see Anita, you have your hand raised.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to mention, just to make sure everyone keeps it in mind. I spoke with Gloria and Kirstine a little bit ago, and she's written, and she's been working on this bill with Senator Robert Jackson for HDFCs, and I think it's pretty important because on the state level, it'll kind of put I don't know, limits on what HPD can say in RAs for HDFCs. So to kind of regulate and define what HPD can put in their regulatory agreements, I think is going to be super important, especially since the expiration of the damp tax, which seemed far away at 2029, is actually now pretty close. And I'm afraid that at that moment, HPD will have, a huge lever to get HDFCs to sign RAs because, as you know, HDFCs don't get the co-op and condo tax abatement, and so they would have no abatement at all unless they sign these RAs. And we want to make sure that, there's some guidelines on the RAs they're being forced to sign.
Yep. Do you have that a link to the bill?
Oh, I can send it to you. But I asked Lori, what's happening with it, and she said, well, we really need, a groundswell of people talking about it, and a lot of people to to engage and to help with this.
Absolutely. Well, if you can share that, perhaps we can add this to our agenda for next month.
Oh, that would be great, because I think the timeline's actually pretty short. And it's greatly needed.
Yep. As an HDFC with an RA. Okay, well, we will, thanks.
Oh, Liz.
What's that, Anita?
I said, oh, Liz.
Yeah, I know. I don't even like to think about it because I love my building. And I would still tell people to move here because it's a lovely, lovely community. All right, so let's keep going so we can get to our action items. I do not see Alana.
She's on leave of absence, so I think we can skip this for now unless anyone has any comments, but I think we can skip film and task force, TV task force.
Okay. So moving on to our action items, Signe, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just say we've talked about 3 of these already. And so I do want to give some time to MHCC, and I'm going to start putting up Sean, are you still on, Sean Rickenbacker? No, I don't think so. So why don't we just switch this around? Because I know you guys have been on for a long time. We appreciate that. And we haven't heard much about this. So I'm going to share my screen with these action items as we go. So we'll start with this one here. And so we took Harry Schwartz, good job on drafting, and Dave and all you guys. Let me share my screen here. Oh, where is it?
And just to give some background, what is the name of the building again with an M?
Moranime.
Moranime. So Moranime is a building on, I believe it's 112th Street, that has been vacant. I'm sure the neighbors can tell you for many years, if not decades. It was finally purchased recently by Columbia University. I also sit on the Landmarks and Parks Committee, and this came to that committee this month and last month in relation to the building's facade being preserved. It is in a landmark district, so we have been talking about this project in that committee for the last 2 months. And really, while we're primarily focused on are the improvements or the changes being made to that building fit within the standards of the Landmarks Preservation Commission, there are other issues regarding this building in terms of use, in terms of occupants. And so my understanding, Signe shared this reso with me, is that the Morningside Heights Community Coalition had drafted a resolution related to this particular project and asking the community board to urge Columbia to include affordable housing in this project. So Signe and I have been talking about this for however the last couple of weeks. And I think it's a great suggestion. And if anything, between the two of us, we have worked to expand the reso to include background from not only what the community board has said in terms of affordable housing, but to include a few whereas statements from our council member. Oh, you didn't put that in there yet, although I know Signe was working on it this afternoon. We included a quote from our borough president, Mark Levine, and Eric Adams, and really just tried to not make this
missing. Sorry, Liz, did something get in there that's missing?
Oh, you had a Sean Abreu quote that you were telling me about earlier. to me.
Yeah, but I'll see what I found.
So the two of us have been working on this, and I just want to say thank you to MHCC for crafting this. We haven't, I don't know, Barry, you've probably seen this, but we haven't shared it with the full committee beyond our meetings notice. So that's just a little bit of background.
We kept most is intact. MHCC, we thought it made sense to us, and most of it's intact. We just made some tried to strengthen it with, some quotes from our elected officials at the top, and then a little bit of editing at the bottom there, I see.
And I mean, that's the background for me. I do want to give some time to Dave and Robert and anyone else from MHCC if you want to talk about more of the background of this building and the suggestion of the resolution.
One thing I will say, and I know Laura lives right next to the building and probably wants to say something as well, and other people, Robert and Harry and Dan may as well, and Mimi McDermott, who lives in a Columbia building, is here in support of that resolution. But I just wanted to say that the community board has been a real partner with MHCC on our affordable housing advocacy and trying to get Columbia to take responsibility for affordable housing in the neighborhood. We started a Just Housing Committee to do this. We had 2 rallies. Barry gave a wonderful speech at one of our rallies. We were part of a resolution that was actually written by April Tyler back in 2020, called for whenever any of the institutions in the neighborhood, and the major institution in our neighborhood is Columbia, build new housing, that they include affordable housing that's really affordable to people in Community Board 9 who really need it. When we saw that the Marana May was going to be developed, we were, I guess hopeful is the word, but not expecting that much of Columbia. And we are very much hopeful that with the community board support and our elected officials support, we can get Columbia to change things. We also, one thing I want to add is that Columbia is building this 34-story tower at 125th Street and Broadway, where the McDonald's was. And that is also slated to be housing for people who are in the institution, who are part of Columbia as an institution. And we very much want to see some affordable housing in there. We've got nothing in the neighborhood, as you know. We're trying to get their rezoning plan through to get some affordable housing. And we welcome and thank the community board for its support of this, and thank you for strengthening the resolution to the extent that you can. And we hope that it'll be a tool that we can all use in creating some affordable housing in Morningside Heights, which is desperately needed.
I'd like to say something. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. Again, thanks to Signe and Liz for augmenting the resolution and giving the background, the mayor and Mark and Sean. I'd just like to point out, both of these projects are likely to come online around next summer. Columbia wants to have the Marana occupied by incoming students next August, not too far from now. They're moving very quickly on it. And it looks that the new building on 125th Street would be ready next August. So we're talking of 160 undergraduate spaces in dormitories and about 175 new Columbia apartments being available at the end of next summer. So this sounds like a long time, but we should be acting now on this. We'll start renting them earlier.
I see Barry, you have your hand.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, this is just pertaining to the Marana May, and it's a flag. This is an area of housing where I am deeply ignorant, but I wanted to note, and this may be relevant, that the Marana May is listed under DOB's building information system as being SRO restricted, because it was a former SRO. And so SRO, single room occupancy law, is a very interesting corner of New York housing law. I don't know it, but there are sometimes some very interesting restrictions about what may be done with SRO buildings. And the question has been raised, is Columbia trying to evade those restrictions by rotating students in and out of it until they can remove it from SRO restrictions? I don't know the answer to that. Someone should check with Gail Brewer's office because they have a close relationship with Goddard Riverside's SRO law project, but just a flag, we may want to note it in the reso.
A very good question, and we don't know what Columbia is doing about it. If they're trying to hide it, or they've already filed some sort of non-harassment certificate application.
Well,
They have not mentioned it in our discussions with them.
It may make sense for MHCC then to try to ask some questions of Goddard Riverside SRO law project or Gail Brewer's office or whoever, and provide some expert answers on SRO questions.
Thanks, Barry. Laura, you're the next hand I see.
Hi, thank you. I happen to live right next door to the Maranamé and have lived next door to the Maranamé for over 45 years. And when that building originally when we originally came into the neighborhood, the Maranamé was obviously an SRO, and it had a lot of elderly poor people in it, and they were our neighbors, and we had a good relationship with them. And the man who bought it was a horrible human being and harassed all of the people out, and that's why. And then he put in people that were vulnerable to his harassment, and he could remove at any time. So, but that said, this was a form of affordable housing for our community. And it is now completely being taken away as affordable housing in any sense of the word. And it is being used for Columbia, who has now said, by the way, in a prior meeting, that it will be permanent housing for their undergraduate population. The reason that they're doing that is because the SRO law that Barry talks about is very clear about what kind of a structure or what kind of an entity can go into there. And an undergraduate dorm fits that description in a way. So our fight is a political fight. It's to get them to admit to the fact that they have a responsibility to provide affordable housing in any new construction that they have, and to keep affordable housing in those places where they currently have non-affiliated residents. So this resolution, and we really thank the community board for it, sort of leads the way in saying exactly that institutions have a responsibility to provide affordable housing. They treat this place like it's a company town. And we have to constantly be pushing back against that and saying they have a responsibility. They live in our community. We don't live in theirs. And so thank you very much for considering this resolution and for strengthening it, as Dave said.
Thanks so much, Laura. I appreciate that. Dan, you're the next hand I see.
Sure. I also want to thank the community board. This is a huge help to us. Barry and others will know that and Signe will know that we've been trying to communicate with Columbia for a long, long time about this. They finally gave us a meeting, and their simple answer to our request was that they couldn't do anything until the new president arrives, which is later this summer. So I just mentioned that for situational awareness among all of us. MHCC should work to do something proactive with the new president, but it may be of interest to the community board as well, because this is an opportunity for this new president to put her best face forward and to show some commitment to the local neighborhood, which is long overdue. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good suggestion of, it would be good to have a sit down with the new president or some sort of, meeting before or once she's taken office.
Yeah, Liz, perhaps Columbia could be invited to a board meeting and asked how they're going to comply with this resolution.
I would love to see that.
A compliance hearing be in order.
We can
Do it.
certainly ask.
Liz,
Juan,
I would love to invite them so we can talk to them.
absolutely. And I see Tiffany is commenting also in favor of affordable housing. Yeah, well, I think that's a good point about the SRO law. I don't know it either. So if there are suggestions, I guess to Barry, if we need to add to this. I don't see Barry anymore. Barry, are you still here?
I'm still here. I would maybe just note that it is an SRO building, and that can be, at least we'll have noted it in the reso.
Okay, all right. So we will go back, Signe and I will go back and note it. So Signe, what do we need to do tonight? We need to get the committee's approval to move forward with this draft for the full board.
Yeah, correct. So can we just do some friendly amendments? So community or just somewhere you want to say something about SROs in here, right? Formally.
Well, Laura had a really good point. So if we do one of the whereases when we first talk about the Maranime, which I think is yeah, and so after that whereas, if we can do another whereas saying, whereas prior to its
it's currently a
vacating.
restricted SRO.
Yes, well, but I want to get, so whereas the building remains subject to SRO restrictions, and prior to its vacate order, well, was it a vacate order? Or prior to its vacancy, served as a single room occupancy building that provided deeply affordable housing to vulnerable members of the community, whereas the building,
It has a history of harassment. You can just Google the building and see that.
Yeah. Deeply affordable housing to vulnerable members of the community.
I asked about the certificate of occupancy, the certificate of no harassment in that previous meeting. Liz, do you remember what they said about that? How they were able to obtain that if no one had lived in the building for decades?
They didn't know. They said they would get back to us in a few days, and they have not. We asked when and how was the certificate of no harassment acquired? Was it before they purchased it, or was it within the last year since they've owned it? They said they don't know.
Yeah.
So before we do back and forth, the final part of this whereas would be comma, whereas in part its conversion to student housing removes what had been a source of, or would remove would remove a historic source of affordable housing from the community, or semicolon and. Whereas the yeah, maybe right before the second it's we put end its conversion. Yeah.
Mary, what about making student housing will remove? That's
Well, I don't wanna treat it as a done deal verbally, rhetorically. You're acting as if it just will be student housing, Harry, but the whole point is that we're demanding that some of it not be.
No, we're saying that if it's converted, it
Yeah,
will.
I get it.
See the syntactical difference?
It will, it would, yeah, I see it. I'm indifferent. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I would just go back to the non-harassment thing. It makes no sense because there is no non-harassment on 142nd Street for the properties that actually had multiple units in it.
So this is something we should probably raise with our DOB liaisons.
It's an HPD issue. HPD issues the certificates of no harassment. You can't get a permit unless you have a permit from DOB unless you have a certificate of no harassment from the HPD certificate of no harassment unit.
Yeah, weirdly, I don't know that we have an HPD liaison, but we do have very good DOB liaisons. So we can ask there, and we'll follow up with HPD.
Apparently, the prior owner wasn't able to receive one.
Well, the prior owner wound up being barred from owning or operating the building as a residence, if I remember correctly.
But the harassment goes with the property, and I think they may even go back 30 years.
Yeah, yep. But that's the only amendment my brain can produce at the moment.
I did want to know, at any of rallies, and do we have any other quotes by Sean kind of specific to the issue of affordable housing and Columbia?
Yeah, we do, which we could get to.
I was trying to find something online,
Yeah,
and
we can.
We could get it to you. It's in our Just Housing report in the appendix. And we can get that to you.
That'd be great. Just something a little bit more specific for Sean, because I know he is in support in some realm here. So
No, we have quotes.
There's a letter in the report.
Yeah, we can pass this. The way this process works is the committee votes on it. It then goes before exec for deconfliction, and it gets added to the general board meeting agenda during exec. And then we vote on it on the general board meeting on the third Thursday. But at any point between now and the third Thursday, friendly amendments can be made to the reso. It's a reso, yeah.
It's a reso.
And then of course, friendly amendments can also be offered on the floor of the general board, but I, as chair, hate that because it takes up time during an already crowded general board meeting. So I strongly encourage people to do their friendly amendments before the Thursday meeting. So all that to say, we can add a quote. We can still vote on this tonight / now, and then add a quote in between now and next Thursday.
Who should I add from MHCC to this document?
Me, I think, and
You do?
yeah, I mean, I could circulate it. Whatever you send to me, I will get to other people. So
okay. So I think you know what it is, but I'll just say. All right. Sent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with that said, can we put it to a vote? Noticed a typo.
I move the resolution be adopted by the committee and sent to the board for approval as amended.
Barry,
Oh, wait, I gotta record this now. I'm doing the minutes.
Barry has motioned. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Signy seconds it.
No, Tiffany seconded it,
Oh, sorry.
I think.
I did. It's fine. I don't care.
You got it, Tiffany. It's all you. Barry and Tiffany. And so we need to do a formal vote, right? So.
Can we do unanimous consent in the committee?
Unanimous? You canimous?
Loving that.
Okay, member Annette Robinson has asked for
Seconded.
unanimous consent, and we have a second from Barry. If anyone opposes, well, if anyone opposes this amendment or this reso, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, the reso passes committee and allows friendly amendments as we move towards our full board for vote.
Thank you so much. This really means a lot to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Us too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being so active and helpful in moving things along. We appreciate that because it takes a village.
Absolute appreciation to you.
Okay, so that one is done. Moving on to the CCNY. So this was Sean Rickenbacker, his discussion about the grant that they are applying for, and he's asked for a letter of support. This one, they gave us a template, and we made a few small changes, added our information into it, and now are putting it towards the committee for a vote. Is there any more discussion on this? We did hear from Sean earlier.
Unanimous consent.
Member Tiffany Khan has asked for unanimous consent.
Seconded.
Barry has seconded. Tanya gives a thumbs up. We will put it to a vote. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Committee, community, all of that. So let me get my head on straight here. All right, I'm back. Could I get committee members, housing committee members we've been asked for unanimous consent. Does anyone oppose this letter of support? And it should say letter of support. Yes, okay. All right, and then we go on to our public members. Gosh, my brain. Public members, I think we have Tanya on the line and Anita on the line. Any other public members on the line? And just give me a yay or nay.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you. And community members, everyone else on the call that would like to have a say, just in unanimous consent, if you are in favor, please say yay. All right, well, if you didn't have an opinion, that's fine too. Hearing no opposition, we'll go there. This also moves forward to full board. All right, so what is next? I believe that would take us to the Vidats. All right, this is the letter that they have requested from us. Letter of support. I'll take a moment to let you take a look at this. And Barry, this is penned by you. So do you have anything further to say? This is to whom? This is to the deputy commissioner?
FDHS, yeah. To development of the property, I would change "we would like to see" to "we understand the need for."
Oh, shoot. Hold on. Undo. Struggle is real. To develop?
For the development, or
Okay.
need to develop, need to develop is fine, actually. To develop the property. And I would take out the word "strong" in the last paragraph. Yeah.
Are there any other friendly amendments to this? And then we'll take a vote. Okay, I have a feeling this won't be unanimous consent, but I will put it out there as yay and nay. So committee members of CB9 Housing Committee, I'm going to go one by one. And please give me your yay or nay on this letter of support. Starting with Barry.
Yay.
Liz?
Yes, I just also want to add, I know everyone is raw and upset, and this is not what we wanted. And I will say that in reflecting on this, and of course thinking about April, I think about April's interaction with me at 142nd Street. And April was always on the side of the community, but she was not a person of no, and she was a person of compromise. And that informs me constantly being on this committee, because what I do for a living is no. I mean, I am the no, and I shame people in the New York Times. And I don't love this, but I know the developer from 142nd Street and the Vedots, and they are night and day. And so I am gonna say yes to this based on what I knew of April, what I knew of that project, the other project, my background, and it's not perfect, but I think we have people in the community that want the best. And I think that's different than some of the other projects that we are still opposed to. So that's it.
So that's a yes, Liz?
Yes.
Okay. And thanks, Liz, for that. I echo this is difficult, and April is constantly in my mind. So with that said, she is in my mind right now when I say yes to this. So Annette?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Could you just tell me again how many units and how many studios?
It's 118 unit studios and 9 2-bedrooms.
Can we see an increase in the number of 2-bedrooms and or 1-bedrooms? We could have more 1-bedroom apartments there. There are no 1-bedrooms currently.
The 1-bedrooms, I'm sorry, the 1-bedrooms won't work. We could look to see if we can increase the 2-bedrooms.
No, wait, let's increase the 2-bedrooms from 9 to 10. And
we will look to increase that. We've gone through
many
drafts already. I promise you, I will look into it.
Okay, if I can hear 15, then you'll get a yes from me.
So you're not gonna get 15. I'm sorry. I would love your yes. Yes. I will give my right hand to Les, but you know, it's it just won't work.
And Tiffany, I do want you to know that we have met with the Vedots already and they have made this better. And I do believe them. If they can make it better for us, they will.
Okay. All right. So, fine. I trust
Tiffany,
you. It's only you. It's honestly Liz, Signe, and Nora.
wait, Tiffany, are you then a yay for the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Recorded.
I believe, is that all our committee members on?
Did
No,
we lose
Juan,
you?
I missed Juan, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've heard developers actually listen to what we had to ask, and they have answered, and they seem honest and sincere. I want to thank this young lady and this distinguished gentleman for their time. They've been here for 3 hours listening to us. That is remarkable. And I chose what Barry has to say too. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Juan. I go to our public members on the line. Tanya?
Yay.
All right. Anita?
Oh, I wanted to thank you all for so much meticulous work. I'm a yes.
Got it. I'm gonna go to community members and I'll say, so if you are a nay on this, go ahead and state your name now.
I think we've lost a number of the people who were providing comment earlier.
Okay. If you would like to put your yay on record, feel free to give your name now. Community members. Or if you'd like to do it in a group, you can say yay in a group. All right, well, hearing no more further votes.
I'm just going to make my yes really, I'm sorry, I'm going to make my yes contingent upon having more larger units. I don't want people, you can't have, I have a 3-year-old. I can't be with her in a small room for any measure of time, let alone 9 months with a, no, I'm sorry. I need to see more larger units. I don't think it's a huge jump to go from 9 to 15.
So should I move you to nay?
It's okay if you're nay, Tiffany. That's okay.
Yes, so be it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
She's nay. Okay, so with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeas, 1 nay.
7 yeas, actually.
7 yeas.
Because public members count as.
Oh, got it. Then we have, so Tanya, Anita, Barry, Signe, Liz, Annette, Juan. That's 7? I can't count. Okay, that's 7. So 7 yeas, 1 nay.
Yeah, and the members of the community have not spoken for or against.
Got it.
Or they have not voted, let's say that.
Okay. All right, then this moves forward to general board.
Yep.
And the last.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And Tiffany, I'm going to look into see how we can increase it. All right. Although you were an A, but we will look. We would like to have everyone to be happy. So I'm going to look into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Carnegie. Thank you, Elder. Everyone, thank you very much. It's
been many years.
It's been many years, and thank you for your understanding. Thank you for trusting us. And I promise you that my phone is always answered by anyone who calls from your community board.
I know there are some neighbors that are concerned about the site as is. So if we can continue to work on that as well, right?
Of course.
My phone is, I promise I will be available to come in.
Appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay. Guys, we're in our last one, I believe. And we need to discuss amendments to the TIL. The previous TIL, is this it? No, this is not it.
Yeah, I got it here. Hold on. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
So where did here we go. All right. So I drafted a resume.
You did not. While you've been taking minutes?
Yes.
Very-
So this is
you're a Wunderkind, even though you're a middle-aged Wunderkind now.
ooh, middle-aged.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're early.
Middle-aged.
So housing zone, so here's our May 15th, 2017 reso. We basically told them to stop moving TIL buildings to ANCP. They have nonetheless persisted in doing so. It's a really shitty thing that they're doing. These TIL buildings, as we forecasted, have heavy debt burdens when they emerge, which results in high maintenance prices. The latest building that I saw on HPD's Facebook page was a building on the Upper West Side, and the monthly maintenance fees on the apartments were like $3,000 a month. And that is before, if you're purchasing an apartment, your mortgage payment, like you then have to pay $3,000 and then you pay your mortgage on top, which is insane. And so we're basically telling them, listen, you should, in your budget that you're passing this year, you should include at least $100 million in FY24 dedicated capital funds for renovation of TIL buildings to be conducted without debt financing. And we urge you to finally uphold your promise to TIL tenants, allow them to purchase their apartments for $250 and to own the buildings as HDFC cooperatives, not burdened by heavy debt loads. We can add more whereases about the town hall and about all of the other garbage, about how HPD claims these buildings are not eligible for capital funding from the city because they don't comply with capital funding rules, but that's only because HPD is improperly lumping in operating expenses to a capital project that then makes it ineligible for capital funding. It's kind of a catch-22 there. So.
Hey, Barry.
Yeah.
Does this include like a reference to the number of them that are in our community board?
It can.
Because I think it should say, because we have so many of these buildings in our, that's why it is important to us, is because if we're talking about affordable housing, we don't have a lot of land to build on. We have all these dumbass buildings that are boarded up that have been sitting there for years, if not decades, and it's nuts.
Yeah, I heard Vince Morgan say 22. Did anyone else hear that? In our neighborhood?
There's gotta be more than that.
I don't think there are that many. It's complicated.
Yeah, I know.
The numbers around TIL are very mysterious because HPD wants to claim that there aren't any TIL buildings anymore, or that there are many fewer than there are because they claim that they've already put them in ANCP when really they're like in pre-development ANCP. It's a stupid thing. It muddies the water. Anyway, I'm going to put approximately 22 buildings in the whereas clause there.
Okay.
Oh yeah, also some of these buildings don't even make it to cooperative status in ANCP.
They just stop?
Well, HPD claims that the tenants chose to not become co-ops.
After a lot of trial, tribulation, and debt accumulation?
And also, like, they kind of torture these people because, like, they tell them they're going to renovate their building. They move them all out of their building. They put their possessions in storage, and then they don't repair the building, and the tenants are displaced for like 15 years. So yeah, you might give up if that's the situation you're in.
Yeah.
Does the building on 141 ever come up?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very depressing. Because there are people paid six-figure salaries to like do this. And then we who are volunteers are trying to like get it done properly. Anywho. Anything else? Friendly amendments?
Are we referencing any of the Palante advocacy to support our community institutions and their efforts to speak out for this community? I think Signe, I mean, in general, I am definitely supportive of this, and
Yeah, I mean, this makes much more sense to me. We've strengthened where we were. It's the timing is right. So yeah.
Just a quick note about the number of people. It was at least 400 people. So if you want to be very specific, it's over 400 people.
Thank you, Andres. I did not know the number, but I could tell by the standing room only crowd and overflow room that it was a ton.
Yeah, the room was supposed to house 300 people. The standing room added to it. And there, of course, were people outside of the building.
Yeah, it was kind of nuts.
Very fun night.
Yeah, they made me run, I don't know, like 8 blocks across town to City College and then up the St. Nicholas Park stairs.
You got only a little sweat on you, Barry.
you got a little extra exercise, Barry. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I needed it.
I didn't say that part. Can I move for unanimous consent for the adoption of this resolution for the committee?
I would second that.
That works for me.
Is anyone opposed to unanimous consent? All right, Signe, I think, who else do we need to ask our
Public members? Public members, any opposition?
Here unanimous.
No.
And community members?
we'll get copies of these, right? Or do we have copies of these?
These resos and letters, they're all in a folder I just shared with you guys, the committee members and public members by Gmail, Google Drive. You should have gotten an email from me, I think.
We did a lot of work tonight, guys.
Yes.
Lot of work. So thank you to everyone. I mean, that we still have 19 people on the call.
Thank you for allowing some of us to have an emotional place in the evening and loving me either way.
And don't forget to read the 163-page text amendment.
God. On all those airplane rides I have in the next month, no problem.
God, that just seems like a disaster.
No, it's fun. This is how we
Love that.
This is how we learn.
Bedtime
Nice.
reading.
Never be afraid to say your vote as is, Tiffany.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good
huh?
night.
Night, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Good
Night,
night.
good night.
Have a
Thanks,
good night.
folks. I'm gonna save the chat.
Can we get the recording of it, Barry, too? I think there's some stuff in there I want to share with Vic and
Yeah, I've trained the staff on how to download the recordings.
I can stop it now, right? So
Yeah.